A being standing at the pinnacle of sages would never come specifically to deliver a spirit herb to an insignificant nobody he had never met. Such a gift must have an ulterior motive. The gray-robed man didn't beat around the bush and said calmly, "This is a great medicine from beyond the heavens, capable of allowing you to break through the three calamities of heaven and man. Consider it a small token of reward from me on behalf of the sages of the source of all evils. However, I also have a small request for you." Just as expected. He came with ill intent indeed. The gray-robed man stood with his hands behind his back, his tone indifferent. "The Truce Stele is not suitable for you to command. Hand it over to me." As expected, it's all for that Truce Stele. On Fang Chen's person, besides that world artifact, the only thing that could draw a grand sage's attention was that stele. With it, one could exchange for any desired item across the myriad realms of the heavens. Fang Chen steadied his mind and probed, "May I ask, Senior, do you intend to stay in the Central Lands and help us resist the Celestial Realm?" The gray-robed man slowly shook his head, his eyes calm as still water. "Is a mere Central Lands worth my staying? I intend to take the Truce Stele back to the source of all evils, to aid my fellow sages." A mere Central Lands. Fang Chen stared blankly at the gray-robed man, scarcely able to believe his ears. Those words had actually come from a grand sage of the Central Lands from 1,000 years ago. The Central Lands was his very homeland. How could he describe it with the word mere? Had they lingered so long in the source of all evils that they had already forgotten their homeland? The gray-robed man stretched out his hand flatly, his tone utterly calm yet carrying the weight of a command. "Hand it over." Fang Chen drew a deep breath and said resolutely, "It is not on me. Even if it were, this junior would not give it. The Truce Stele is meant to completely eradicate the hidden dangers of the Central Lands. No one is allowed to take it away." The gray-robed man slowly retracted his hand, his gaze abruptly turning icy. "Where is it?" Those eyes suddenly became piercingly cold, as if he had utterly lost patience with an insect. An overwhelming pressure, like the canopy of heaven overturned, spread out invisibly. In an instant, strands of 5, colored rosy light surged from within Fang Chen's body, desperately resisting the crushing majesty. The gray-robed man raised a finger and pointed it lightly at Fang Chen. "I do not like repeating the same words twice." A faint snick of a piercing sound was heard. That single finger had actually punched a hole through the 5, colored rosy light. A fatal, deathly chill instantly invaded Fang Chen's entire body. The 5, colored rosy light could only block the pressure of sages of this world. But once they truly struck, it could no longer withstand. Fang Chen felt the icy cold of death, yet his gaze was unusually calm and unusually firm. "Then I shall answer you once more. The Truce Stele will never be given to you." An indescribable disappointment welled up in his heart. They had finally awaited the return of a sage of the Three Calamities realm, only to be greeted by one who treated the lives of the Central Lands as worthless as grass. The gray-robed man's expression turned utterly indifferent, and he uttered only 4 words, "Then die." His finger, pointed gently, aimed straight at Fang Chen's forehead. Meanwhile, Fang Chen had already tightly clutched a jade box filled with tainted blood. "Kill him. Then let's perish together." "Stop." 9 perfectly synchronized deep shouts suddenly erupted from all directions. It was precisely the 9 Grand Libationers, materializing from illusion to reality, speaking in unison. They varied in gender, age, and build, yet those 9 voices fused together as if becoming the voice of a single person, exuding an uncanny oppressiveness. The gray-robed man's finger halted, slowly withdrew, and he looked at the 9 Grand Libationers, saying indifferently, "A mere junior, and yet it has roused all 9 Grand Libationers together, truly surprising." The Grand Libationer of taking great prefecture waved his fly, whisk, and Fang Chen was instantly teleported to his side. This elder Libationer spoke lightly. "I am also surprised. A mere junior, and yet he has alarmed the Grand Sage of Heavenly Patrol to personally intervene. What is it to eliminate a hidden threat for your son?" The gray-robed man remained silent. Only his gaze toward Fang Chen grew sharper by a few degrees. Only then did Fang Chen fully comprehend. The Grand Sage of Heavenly Patrol's visit had been a special trip to kill him from the very beginning. Whether he handed over the Truce Stele or not, he would have attacked. The reason was simple. His rise had been too meteoric, already overshadowing the Grand Sage of Heavenly Patrol's bloodline son, that young emperor. Fang Chen couldn't help but sneer. No wonder the young emperor is domineering and cold. hot-blooded, so he has such a narrow-minded, ruthless father. You father and son are truly alike." He shifted his tone, a hint of disdain appearing in his eyes. "But your son is better than you. At least he still has some pride and disdain striking the weak." The glare of the Grand Sage of Heavenly Patrol grew ever sharper, as if turning into tangible blades that stabbed straight at him. The Grand Libationer of Taking Great Prefecture flicked his sleeve, directly blocking that gaze, and said coldly, "Since you have already healed your son, return to your source of all evils. Do not linger any longer in the Central Lands." The Grand Sage of Heavenly Patrol cast a deep, meaningful glance at Fang Chen and spoke in a sinister tone. "Fang Chen, is it? First among the 9 stele, name inscribed on the 9 stele. The dark tide is approaching. I will be watching to see whether the Central Lands will come begging to me, or to you." As his words faded, his figure instantly dissolved into streaks of light, scattering in all directions. A tiny rift of nothingness flickered and vanished, swallowing the light and disappearing completely. The dark tide again. Fang Chen deeply furrowed his brows. Just what exactly is it? Forget it, put it aside for now. The most urgent task is to take advantage of the celestial realm's weakened state and annihilate them completely at once. He immediately turned and bowed deeply to the 9 Grand Libationers. "Thank you, esteemed Grand Libationers, for your protection." Presumably, when the Grand Sage of Heavenly Patrol returned, the 9 Grand Libationers had already sensed that he would come seeking trouble with Fang Chen. Thus they had all assembled here. The weeping Grand Libationer wiped away tears and sobbed, "Woo-woo-woo, Fang Chen, are you truly going to the Netherworld? I can't bear to part with you." Fang Chen scratched his head in embarrassment. "Forgive me, seniors. Those were just words spoken in anger earlier. Please don't take them to heart. The Central Lands is my homeland, and here are people and things I cannot let go of. I will not defect to the Netherworld, please rest assured." The Grand Libationers were finally at ease. The Grand Libationer of Taking Great Prefecture gently held his fly, whisk, and said with a smile, "I was never worried. If one day you did defect to the Netherworld, it would certainly be because someone forced you to go." Among the 9 Grand Libationers, the one from Taking Great Prefecture had spent the most time with Fang Chen and knew him best. He absolutely did not believe that Fang Chen would voluntarily defect to the Netherworld. Fang Chen nodded and clasped his fist once more. "This junior once again thanks all seniors for your protection. I shall take my leave now." The 9 Grand Libationers exchanged glances, then simultaneously extracted a shimmering speck of light from between their brows and flicked them before Fang Chen. Fang Chen stared blankly. "What is this?" The Grand Libationer of Taking Great Prefecture laughed. "Before the expedition to the Netherworld, we had promised rewards. The first to enter the center of the Netherworld's T would receive merits, if a great venerable, or insights, if not. These are some insights we 9 Grand Libationers have accumulated over a millennium. They should be of some use to you in grasping the 3rd domain." Fang Chen slapped his forehead. He had almost completely forgotten about this. He hastily grabbed the 9 specks of light and exclaimed joyfully, "Thank you, 9 Grand Libationers. This junior takes his leave." Watching Fang Chen depart into the distance, the expressions of the 9 Grand Libationers simultaneously darkened. Had we not arrived in time, Fang Chen would already have suffered the poisonous hand of that old scoundrel Heavenly Patrol. 1,000 years ago, he already refused to save the North Mystic Sword Venerable, caring only for his own escape. We thought sending him to the source of all evils might improve his ways, but who would have thought he'd only grow more outrageous? The faces of several Grand Libationers were tinged with lingering fear. If they had been even a moment later, Fang Chen would likely have already fallen. The Grand Libationer of Taking Great Prefecture stroked his beard and said gravely, "The Grand Sage of Heavenly Patrol is now at the Three Calamities realm, holding an extremely ig position among the elders. I fear he will not let this matter rest easily." The Grand Libationer of Tian Prefecture frowned deeply. "Compared to the Grand Sage of Heavenly Patrol, I am more worried about the young Emperor." Tian Prefecture, Young Emperor Mountain. A palace suspended high in the sky, surrounded by swirling suns, moons, and stars. Outside the Great Hall, a group of spirit transformation cultivators knelt respectfully on one knee. "We respectfully welcome the young Emperor out of seclusion." In the depths of the dark hall, a throne woven from 9 colored lightning slowly floated out of the darkness. On the throne reclined a youth with a handsome face, but a cold and ruthless expression. He looked down upon the spirit transformation cultivators scattered below, his gaze icy as frost, in the battle of the Netherworld, who achieved the greatest merit. Venerable Lianjing knelt on one knee at the very front, her eyes flickering slightly, and said in a low voice, "Young Emperor, the battle of hell yields no merit. There is no need to care about victory or defeat." The young Emperor glanced at her sideways, his tone suddenly icy. "Answer me, who is it?" Venerable Lianjing shut her mouth, a surge of intense unease rising in her heart. A deity transformation stage general pressed his head deeply into the ground and said carefully, "It is the heavenly secret pavilion, Fang Chen." With a thunderous boom, the young Emperor slowly rose to his feet. The immense oppressive force actually shattered the Thunder King throne behind him into scattered fragments. He was first on the 9 steel rankings. He also left his name on the steel, and he took the chief merit in the hell battle. No wonder he dares to cultivate the void-flowing thunder force alongside me. His 5 fingers suddenly clenched, countless arcs of lightning crazily condensed in his palm, instantly forming a shocking kill character. He casually tossed it, throwing the lightning arc kill character to Venerable Lianjing. "Give this to Fang Chen. Tell him in 10 days, come to Young Emperor Mountain to meet your death. If he does not come, I will personally lead my forces to slaughter the heavenly secret pavilion, and then not even a chicken or dog will remain." Venerable Lianjing's face showed deep bitterness. She had long known that after the young Emperor's injuries recovered, the first thing he would do was seek a decisive battle with Fang Chen. The young Emperor was arrogant and haughty. How could he tolerate a peer surpassing him? Venerable Lianjing hesitated for a moment, then softly persuaded, "Young Emperor, it is better to wait until the expedition to the heavenly realm is over. It is not advisable to have internal strife now." 2 beams of chilling lightning suddenly shot out from the young Emperor's eyes, fiercely striking Venerable Lianjing. With a miserable groan, her delicate body flew backward out of the plaza like a kite with a broken string, blood spraying from her mouth all along the way, a shocking sight. Seeing this, everyone around was even more terrified, all prostrating on the ground, not daring to breathe heavily. It must be known that Venerable Lianjing was the young Emperor's own birth mother. Even so, defying his will resulted in severe punishment just the same. The young Emperor's gaze was cold, and without a trace of emotion, he said chillingly, "Defy this young Emperor's command once more, and die." He looked around, his eyes becoming increasingly frigid, and shouted sternly, "Where is the heavenly patrol sage?" Just as he finished speaking, a figure flickered beside the young Emperor, and the lightning annihilation sage of Young Emperor Mountain slowly condensed into form, sighing softly. "He has gone to find Fang Chen." The young Emperor's eyes turned slightly cold, snorting coldly, meddling in others' business. "The person this young Emperor wants to kill, it's not his turn to kill for me." As he spoke, he grasped empty air, and a black and a white spiritual herb appeared out of nowhere in his palm. The black one was exactly the same as the one the heavenly patrol sage had previously given to Fang Chen. The white one, however, contained an immensely powerful life force, clearly an extremely precious holy medicine for healing injuries. The fact that he survived this time was entirely thanks to the white spiritual herb the heavenly patrol sage brought back to heal his wounds. He flicked his finger, and both spiritual herbs, along with a crimson kill command token, instantly moved to appear before Venerable Lianjing. The young Emperor instructed expressionlessly, "If Fang Chen is not dead, heal him, and then let him raise his cultivation a bit higher. I, the young Emperor, do not kill the incompetent." Venerable Lianjing's chest was stained with blood. Looking at the suspended kill token and the black and white spiritual herbs before her, a pained expression appeared on her face. After hesitating for a moment, she ultimately grasped the 2 items, turned around, and left in despondence. Now then, in the Hell Realm, at the border between the Hell Root and the Blood Sea, there was a vast canyon. This place was barren and desolate, with scarce yin creatures of heaven and earth. It was once a lawless zone. But now it was crowded with clan members from the 9 tribes of Asura of the heavenly realm. After the betrayal of the 10 evils of the central earth, 5 of the Asura emperors of the 9 tribes had perished, and another was gravely injured. At this moment, the 3 surviving Asura emperors and the severely wounded Asura emperor of the Wangshan tribe were leading all their people in discussing a matter of great importance. Tens of thousands of powerhouses and common clansmen gathered densely on the perimeter. Hong Xiu stood alone in the center, enduring countless furious gazes. The gravely injured Wangshan tribe Asura emperor announced with stern voice, "Hong Xiu, you colluded with Fang Chen of the Central Earth, disregarding the dignity and interests of the Hell Realm, signing a treaty that humiliates and forfeits the realm's rights. This emperor declares, expel you from the 9 tribes of Asura." The surrounding clansmen of the 9 tribes immediately raised earth, shaking roars, get out of our 9 tribes of Asura." Some cursed angrily, "You've made our 9 tribes of Asura, the rats everyone calls for beating in the Hell Realm, you sinner of the Asura clan." Others shrieked curses, "You are as shameless as your sister, betraying our Asura clan to fornicate with a human." For a time, all kinds of vicious curses poured down like a blanket. Hong Xiu listened in silence. She understood in her heart that the 9 tribes of Asura were never going to be tolerated by the Hell Realm anyway. Even without that treaty, they would still face blame everywhere and have no place to settle. As for the claim that she fornicated with Fang Chen, if that were truly the case, she would not have taken away Lu Zhu's Yin Marrow Tiger Tally, nor would she have exhausted all our strength to stop Fang Chen from activating the undying divine tree. But she gave no explanation at all, because she knew very well that what the 9 tribes of Asura needed was never an explanation, but an account to give to the Hell Realm. They naively believed that as long as they drove away Hong Xiu, the Asura clans of the Hell Realm would accept them, their brethren from 10,000 years ago. Even more naively, they believed that by completely severing ties with Hong Xiu, they would no longer be targeted and ostracized everywhere. Therefore, she did not speak much. She simply took out the identity token, engraved with the 4 words Wangshan Hong Xiu, from her waist. That was her identity token in the Wangshan Asura tribe. She gently placed the token down, then silently turned and walked toward the outside of the canyon. Outside the canyon, groups of Hell Realm Asura powerhouses who had rushed over had long surrounded the area in scattered clusters. All of them had come to crusade against Hong Xiu. Hong Xiu walked outside the canyon expressionlessly, looking at the groups of Asura clansmen brimming with anger and killing intent, and whispered softly, "Fang Chen, everything is as you calculated. I am now intolerable to the 9 tribes of Asura, and intolerable to the Hell Realm. You are truly ruthless." The Asura clansmen who had gathered around had long been impatient to kill Hong Xiu. If they couldn't kill Fang Chen, could they not even kill this wretch Hong Xiu? For a time, shouts of killing shook the heavens. "Kill her, this sinner of the Hell Realm. Traitor, surrender yourself. Die, you animal." Amidst the curses, the Hell Realm Asura clansmen were filled with rage and launched deadly attacks one after another. Strand after strand of bloodline innate power, the terrifying might of numerous artifacts, all crazily bombarded her thin body. Hong Xiu's expression remained unchanged. She simply pushed up the glasses on her nose bridge, and a dense yin energy rapidly coalesced in her palm as she charged straight ahead to kill. She had never been one to give up easily. Even if the entire Hell Realm could not tolerate her, she would never wait to be killed with hands bound. Half a shichen later, Hong Xiu was already covered in blood, with several more ferocious and horrifying wounds on her body, her breath erratic, and her yin energy extremely thin. She had actually forcibly carved a bloody path out. But at this moment, where should she go? Ahead and further ahead, as far as the eye could see, nothing awaited her but endless pursuit and killing. Just then a shout came, and the Snow City young master caught up, holding a large pouch in his hand. Hong Xiu stared at him vigilantly, shouting coldly, "Don't come near." The Snow City young master stopped, sighing softly. "If I truly wanted to kill you, wouldn't it be easy now?" He tossed the pouch on the ground. It was filled with various rare yin energy nourishing items. The Snow City young master continued, "Driving you away was a move the 9 tribes of Asura had no choice but to make. I hope you will not hate us. Take these resources, find a place to hide, and slowly digest them." Hong Xiu expressionlessly refused. "I don't need them. Take them back." She thought, what use were resources? At this moment, she was besieged on all sides, with enemies everywhere. No matter how many resources, it was all in vain. The only way to break the deadlock was to break through to the Asura Emperor realm. Those who pursued and called for her death simply thought she was weak and alone, that they could easily kill her. But once she became an Asura Emperor, ranking among the great powers of the Hell Realm, who would dare to casually hunt her down. Even insults would no longer be dared. In the Hell Realm, strength can solve all problems. All problems. But how precious was the fortuitous opportunity to achieve Asura Emperor. Even the lofty rulers of the 9 domains had personally pursued Fang Chen for just one such Asura Emperor opportunity. She, a sinner of the Hell Realm, could never possibly obtain it. The young master of Snow City sighed and brought out an ancient treasure box. Inside it, astonishingly, lay a single drop of ancient Asura sacred blood. With a complicated expression, he said, "I give this to you. This was secretly left me by my father to help me break through to the Asura Emperor realm. Now I give it to you. I hope your luck holds and you return after ascending to the Asura Emperor." Hong Xiu's face was filled with disbelief, although she had speculated that the 9 Asura clans might still possess a tiny amount of Asura sacred blood from 1,000 years ago, and that they would have kept some for the young master of Snow City. She had never imagined that the young master would voluntarily give it to her. In a heavy tone, the young master said, "Our 9 Asura clans have wronged you. Consider this a personal compensation from me. Take care of yourself." After speaking, he set down the drop of Asura sacred blood, and with a blur of movement, teleported away. Hong Xiu was silent for a long moment. She reached out through the air to grab the jade box, but did not directly take it into her hand. Instead, she released several bursts of yin energy, striking the jade box. The instant the yin energy touched the jade box, hidden grotesque tentacles suddenly shot out, madly lashing and coiling in all directions. Hong Xiu's gaze turned cold, and without hesitation she hurled it far away. She cried out in a delicate voice, "I knew you were treacherous," and immediately teleported backward at high speed. But midway through her retreat, a pitch black spear savagely tore through the sky, slamming her out of the void and crashing her into the magma below. She violently coughed up a mouthful of blood. Hong Xiu vomited blood profusely. Her already heavily injured body nearly split apart on the spot. Her life aura rapidly faded and grew weak. That single strike nearly took more than half of her life. The young master of Snow City slowly materialized, spear in hand, clutching the drop of Asura sacred blood. His expression was grim as he said, "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. I had intended to keep you imprisoned as my captive, so I could enjoy your body and beauty as well as borrow your wisdom. That would have been your best ending. Alas, you forced me to kill you." Looking at Hong Xiu with little life left, the young master felt indescribable regret. It was truly a pity that the foremost beauty of the 9 Asura clans would thus perish, her fragrant soul vanishing. But the 9 Asura clans absolutely could not let Hong Xiu leave. This woman was far too intelligent. If they expelled her today, and she sought revenge later, the consequences would be unimaginable. So he had been ordered to send Hong Xiu on her final journey. With this thought, he raised his long spear, ready to hurl it at Hong Xiu. But who could have known just at this critical, hair-trigger moment? An absolutely terrifying pressure of an Asura emperor descended mightily, enveloping everything. The young master's body shook violently. He vomited a large mouthful of blood on the spot and cried out in horror, "Eight hells, Asura emperor!" How dare he linger any longer? He hastily teleported away in a panic, no longer daring to concern himself with Hong Xiu's life or death. A majestic, tiger-headed figure slowly materialized out of thin air. It was unmistakably the tiger-headed human, bodied 8 hells Asura Emperor, the scorching sun Asura Emperor. Hong Xiu struggled painfully to sit up, a gleam flashing in her eyes. Inwardly, however, she mused, if he truly intended to kill her, why go to the trouble of driving away the young master of Snow City? She immediately asked in a focused tone, "Are you looking for me?" But the scorching sun Asura Emperor shook his head, stepped aside and bowed slightly, saying, "It is not I who seeks you." Before his words had finished, 1,000 Jiang-tall shadows silently projected over. The projection wore bright, gorgeous flowers on its head, its figure extremely alluring and seductive. It let out a charming, mellifluous giggle. Tusk, 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 Fang Chen is truly ruthless. Without batting an eye, he pushed you into a hopeless situation where you're hated by all sides. He's such a cold, blooded fellow who kills without leaving a trace. Hong Xiu struggled to her feet, her icy gaze fixed on the projection. Isn't this exactly what you, the Parameter Realm Lord, wanted to see? It was precisely the Parameter Realm Lord who had forcibly assigned her to sign that treaty destined to stink for 10,000 years, leading her to this miserable state. The Parameter Realm Lord's goal had been to give her a harsh lesson. All because Hong Xiu's intervention had prevented a war between the two races, keeping the 9 Asura clans from being worn down to nothing as planned. Now, this large, chaotic force could ignite a civil war within the Hell Realm at any moment. The Parameter Realm Lord placed one hand on her hip, her laughter tinged with mockery. "You're even more pitiful than I imagined. Your own people not only expelled you, but also want to kill you. Outsiders wish to eat your flesh and drink your blood. The Hell Realm is vast, but there's not a single inch of land for you to shelter. You might as well learn from your sister and stay by Fang Chen's side. Now you've lost Fang Chen's affection and are rejected by the Hell Realm, truly despised on both sides." Hong Xiu raised her head to the sky and said calmly, "I act only according to my conscience. Since my heart is free of guilt, what is there to regret?" All of her actions had been for the survival and welfare of the 9 Asura clans. Now, the 9 Asura clans had preserved their strength as much as possible. Her goal had been achieved. Thus, what was there to regret? Oh, Tilda, I underestimated you. The Parameter Realm Lord nodded lightly, a hint of admiration in her voice. Your character is quite good, with a touch of Dongfang Canyu. If given the chance to lead the 9 Asura clans, you might truly replicate her deeds. Very well, as one who cherishes talent, I shall give you a chance. Hong Xiu remained silent, merely gazing quietly at the projection. The Parameter Realm Lord said leisurely, I want you to go and infiltrate Fang Chen's side, ready to obey the orders of the Hell Realm at any time. Those orders include, but are not limited to, taking the Hell Realm artifact from him and killing him. Infiltrate Fang Chen's side. Involuntarily, the shameful memories of being tormented by Fang Chen in the tent surfaced in Hong Xiu's mind. She decisively shook her head. I'd rather die in the Hell Realm than go to Fang Chen's side. The Parameter Realm Lord giggled. Is that so? I was originally planning to help you advance to the Asura Emperor Realm.
What?
Hong Xiu's heart jolted fiercely. The Parameter Realm Lord continued, I borrowed Fang Chen's Truce Stele. The price is to give him an Asura Emperor at his command, along with an Asura Emperor opportunity. I believe you are the most suitable candidate. I'll give you 3 breaths to think. I agree. Hong Xiu didn't hesitate in the slightest. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. If she could reach the Asura Emperor realm, then the humiliation from Fang Chen would be worth enduring. Anyway, he could only torment her for half an hour at most. Just endure it, and it will pass. But this appearance of mine, Hong Xiu hesitated. The Parameter Realm Lord giggled, and a black pearl descended from the sky. Swallow it. Without a moment's hesitation, Hong Xiu tilted her head back and swallowed it. Her body immediately began to change drastically. Facial muscles squirmed, features subtly shifted. Her hair turned from gold to deep blue. The golden glasses on her face melted and condensed into 2 golden pupils that overlapped with her black irises. Ultimately, she evolved a pair of dual, pupil eyes. Her originally slender, thin figure became even more graceful and captivating. Before long, a southern beauty with long blue hair, snow-white skin, an oval face, and exquisite features had strikingly appeared. Hong Xiu examined herself with magic and was briefly dazed. This appearance, though not as peerlessly beautiful as her true face, was still stunning enough. She then asked, once I'm in the Middle Continent, how will I receive the Realm Lord's orders? After all, cross-realm communication was by no means easy. Something as rare as the Lunar Realm was unique across all the myriad realms. The Parameter Realm Lord explained, it's simple. The pearl you swallowed is a supreme treasure I refined for 1,000 years. I can split a wisp of my soul across realms and lodge it within that pearl. Hong Xiu gave a slight nod. The Parameter Realm Lord added, one reminder, when my soul enters your body, it will occupy your physical vessel. Do not be alarmed.
Oh.
Hong Xiu habitually raised her hand to adjust her glasses, but grasped at empty air. She asked meaningfully, then, any sensations the body experiences will be borne by that wisp of your soul, Realm Lord. The Parameter Realm Lord seemed to find this an extremely strange question, and casually replied, of course. Is there a problem? Hong Xiu shook her head. No problem. I am very willing to go to the Middle Continent. The Parameter Realm Lord said, go with the Scorching Sun Asura Emperor. He will take you to breakthrough. It is best to complete the breakthrough within 10 days.
Yes.
Meanwhile, in the distant Myriad Poison's realm, a streak of light violently tore through the world barrier and flickered rapidly through the void. A black-robed elder, along with a youth behind him who carried a divine ring, upon which 3 flame marks were branded, was rushing toward the Middle Continent at full speed. That youth was none other than Jiang Yishan of the Myriad Poison's realm. He snorted coldly. I refuse to believe that anyone in the Central Earth realm could have cultivated this elder's true scripture of the poison source. At the same time, in the ancient demon realm, a vast, pervasive mist seeped out from the world strand by strand. Within the mist, countless real and unreal ruins and pavilions were reflected. A gigantic, bizarre demon beast was inhaling and exhaling the thick mist, letting out a deep roar. You stole my primordial command token, and even captured my son. Fang Chen of the Central Earth, this seat shall see just what kind of deity you really are. In the northern heaven realm, a figure stood suspended in the void. Yan Wangxi held one hand behind his back, a pair of enormous golden wings unfurled behind him, his entire being emanating the intimidating aura of a sage. His cultivation had shockingly broken through to the Archangel realm. That realm was equivalent to the level of a human sage or the Asura Emperor of the Hell realm. Back when they participated in the primordial hunt, he, young Masters Yang, and Liu Bianhuang had all deliberately suppressed their cultivation at the 5 declines of heaven and man to join. Now that the hunt was over, there was naturally no need for any further suppression. Fang Chen, Yanwang Xiao's handsome and refined face was now as dark as a vengeful ghost. You stole my Truce Stele, seized my spatial storage device, and even dare to covet Jayod. You deserve to die 1,000 deaths. He raised a palm and slashed, directly tearing open the world's barrier. His golden wings suddenly spread wide, and he transformed into an afterimage, vanishing in an instant. In the depths of the Sin realm, the neigh of a warhorse shook the entire starry sky. A white skeletal steed wreathed in blazing flames could be seen, treading on a blood, red moon, brazenly charging out of the Sin realm. On its back sat an ancient, blurry figure clad in armor, wielding a blood, red long spear, urging the horse forward while roaring, "Target, Central Earth. Kill the human Fang Chen." Almost simultaneously, violent disturbances erupted across the myriad realms of the heavens. Streaks of light tore through the dark void, madly converging toward the direction of the Central Earth. Meanwhile, in the Central Earth, at the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, beneath the starry sky, Fairy Yuncheng sat quietly on the rooftop. She would sometimes look up at the stars above, and sometimes gaze at the scenery ahead. Her 9 foxtails floated gently behind her like snow-white clouds. Worried about him, a voice suddenly spoke. Beside Fairy Yuncheng, a graceful silhouette in a yellow long robe materialized. It was the charming and otherworldly Venerable True Words, who, like a fresh breeze blowing from the mountains, instantly extinguished the restlessness in one's heart. Fairy Yuncheng looked up at her and nodded gently, Although he always turns danger into safety every time, I still can't bring myself to feel at ease. She paused, then asked, have all the things from Moon, Washing Lake been moved over? Venerable True Words smoothed her skirt and sat down beside her, gazing at the distant scenery, nodding slightly. They've all been moved. From now on, this is my home. She had fully accepted Fang Chen, seeing herself as his woman. Fairy Yuncheng rested her snowy cheeks on her hands, tilted her head to look at Venerable True Words, as if recalling some past memory, and couldn't help but curl her lips slightly upward. What are you smiling about? Venerable True Words asked. Fairy Yuncheng's eyes held a smile. Do you remember when you lost your memory and imitated me? When I wore white, you wore white too. When I slept with Fang Lang, you came to sleep as well, and the 3 of us shared the same blanket like that. Venerable True Words' body tensed slightly, and she turned away with a slight blush. You know well enough that I'd lost my memory. Truly, that little lecher got the better of it. No sooner had she spoken than she herself couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Back then it had driven her mad, chasing after Fang Chen to cut off his manhood. Now, this thought brought a peculiar sense of nostalgia. Fairy Yuncheng also covered her mouth with a laugh, gently took her arm, and said softly, "Welcome to this family, little sister Zhenyan. I once said that when you came to understand Fang Lang's character, you would fall in love with him uncontrollably." Fairy Yuncheng sighed softly, looking directly at Venerable True Words. Well, did my words not come true? Venerable True Words showed an embarrassed expression, but did not deny that she had fallen for Fang Chen's character. She asked softly, how did you know it would be like this? Back then, I had no romantic feelings for him, not even after he had taken my body. Fairy Yuncheng revealed a nostalgic look, her gaze drifting wistfully into the distance. Her voice was as light as a wisp of mist, because your experience is somewhat similar to mine. The deeper the hatred at the start, the deeper you'll fall in the end, a kind of hopeless, incurable fall. Venerable True Words pursed her lips into a smile, thinking to herself, indeed, it is somewhat similar. However, she felt that she wasn't yet as incurable as Fairy Yuncheng. She always felt there was still something separating them. Fairy Yuncheng watched her with a smile at the corner of her lips and asked gently, there's something I've wanted to ask for a long time. Venerable True Words nodded. Go ahead and ask. Fairy Yuncheng said slowly, when you lost your memory back then, you feared no one. Only after Sister Ruxu spoke to you alone, you became very afraid of her. Even after she left, if I shouted Liu Ruxu is coming, you would be scared. Fairy Yuncheng's eyes were full of curiosity. I'm very curious. What did Sister Ruxu say to you? Can you solve this mystery now? At these words, Venerable True Words' body suddenly stiffened, her expression turning extremely unnatural. She hurriedly averted her gaze, stammering, I'll go back to my room first. I still have to guide everyone's cultivation tomorrow. Don't rush off, I want to know too. Suddenly, a gentle voice, tinged with teasing, sounded behind the two women. Before they could react, two large hands wrapped around their waists and pulled them steadily into an embrace. The two women jolted, looked up, and were instantly overjoyed, crying out involuntarily, "Fang Lang! Fang Chen!" Fairy Yunsheng threw her arms around Fang Chen's neck, weeping with joy. Venerable True Words, however, was slightly unnatural. In front of others, she was too embarrassed to be too intimate with Fang Chen, and even addressed him as Fang Chen rather than husband. Fang Chen held the two warm, soft bodies, a profound and steady warmth surging in his heart. A flavor, called happiness, quietly bloomed in the depths of his heart like sweet candy. He hugged them tightly and asked softly, "Is everyone well?" Fairy Yunsheng choked out, "With your life or death uncertain, who could be well? Let's go inform everyone of this good news now." Fang Chen gently shook his head, his deep voice full of tenderness. "It's late. Wait until tomorrow. And tonight, I want to properly spend time with you too." Fairy Yunsheng understood implicitly, buried her face in his embrace, and a hint of shyness welled up in her eyes. Venerable True Words, however, acted as if her rear had been scalded by fire, quickly standing up from Fang Chen's arms, saying hastily, I'll go back first." Fang Chen grabbed her small hand, smiling teasingly. "We've already shared the same blanket before. What's there to be shy about? Why not make it real this time?" Venerable True Words abruptly shook off Fang Chen's hand, laughing angrily, "In your dreams. I'm ignoring you." With that, she vanished in a flash. Fang Chen watched the direction she fled, smiling without a word. Fairy Yunsheng murmured thoughtfully, "Fang Lang, does little sister Zhenyan still have some misgivings about your relationship? I always feel that she is both close and distant with you, as if something is missing by one step." Fang Chen's smile faded, and he nodded gently, "I know what it is. After I finish handling the matters at hand, I'll help her." Fairy Yunsheng nodded slightly, and soon noticed the unconcealable weariness in Fang Chen's eyes, asking with concern, "What did you experience in the Hell Realm?" Fang Chen smiled faintly, wrapped one arm around her waist, hooked his other arm under her legs, and steadily lifted her up. In a low, hoarse voice tinged with languor, he said, "The night is long. Your husband will tell you slowly." Fairy Yunsheng shyly covered her face, allowing Fang Chen to carry her back to the room. Early the next morning. "Oh, no!" Fairy Yunsheng sat up abruptly from her slumber. The silk quilt slipped down silently, revealing her snow-white, flawless body, which astonishingly exuded the aura of an eight-orifice demon emperor. A faint, elusive trace of madness, like spider silk, coiled around her. Fang Chen only then realized something was amiss. Before the battle with the ancient giants, Fairy Yunsheng had already been a seven-orifice demon emperor. After obtaining so many rewards later, and gaining opportunities during the journey to the Hell Realm. His cultivation had long reached the peak of the 7 apertures, and he could break through to the 8 apertures at any moment. Last night, after a night of passion with Fang Chen, her heavenly fox bloodline passively activated and drew upon Fang Chen's cultivation. Thus, Fairy Yunsheng smoothly broke through to become an 8 apertures demon emperor. His face tightened, and he asked in a deep voice, "How is your comprehension of the Tao intent coming along?" Fairy Yunsheng pressed her red lips together, frowning. "Thanks to the precious treasure that Fang my love brought back from the primal ancient hunt, which enhances comprehension, I've mostly grasped it. I'm not far from perfection."
But
Fang Chen's expression grew stern. "When attesting the Tao to achieve spirit transformation, there is no such thing as mostly. Comprehended Tao must be perfectly complete. Even the slightest deviation guarantees failure." Panic flickered in Fairy Yunsheng's eyes. Trembling, she said, "Fang my love, I don't want to become a madwoman." Even at the 8 apertures, one still frequently descends into madness, forced to bear an unsightly shackle and at constant risk of being knocked unconscious. She would rather remain forever at the 7 apertures demon emperor realm than face Fang Chen in that state. Feeling the pleading in her gaze, Fang Chen felt utterly helpless as well. Matters of Tao comprehension are nearly impossible to assist with external force. Suddenly, an idea flashed through Fang Chen's mind. With a thought, he retrieved the Buddha's prayer beads from the heavenly thunderstone. The Lord Buddha had said that these beads are a quasi-realm artifact personally worn by the Buddha for many years, imbued with his Buddhist resonance, capable of pointing one to the right path. If someone fails to break through to spirit transformation and falls into madness, these beads could jolt them back to clarity. Of course, the person's own Tao must be nearly perfect. If the gap is too great, or if they have no comprehension at all, then there is no path to point toward. There was just one problem. The Lord Buddha made it very clear that only a Buddha Venerable could activate it. In the Central Lands, only the Buddhist kingdom of Tianju has a Buddha Venerable, should he go ask him. Even setting aside whether he would be willing to exhaust his Buddhist power over a prolonged period to guide Fairy Yunsheng, the moment he learned of the prayer beads, he would bargain relentlessly for the benefit of his kingdom. And that's assuming Fang Chen's status as the derivative Saint Buddha actually counts for something. Otherwise, that old bald donkey might just seize it by force. After all, this is a treasure of the Buddha himself. Fang Chen was deeply troubled. Just then, the Buddhist light from the prayer beads shone upon a discarded sack, and one of the sacks immediately began to stir. Fang Chen looked over in surprise, and it all came rushing back. Before entering the Buddha's secret realm, he had seen a group of monks knocked into the void by a giant emperor. He had casually rescued them and stuffed them into a sack, then forgotten entirely. How could I have forgotten about these monks from hell? Fang Chen was speechless, realizing things were about to get complicated. Yunsheng, put your clothes on first. Fairy Yunsheng nodded and carefully dressed herself back into her white robe. Only then did Fang Chen release them all. There were 6 monks in total. He had been in a rush to reach the Buddha domain and hadn't examined them closely. Now he saw that 5 were old monks, and 1 was a young monk who appeared barely 10 years old. The 5 old monks were easy enough to place. They should be at the spirit transformation realm. But as for that young monk, Fang Chen could not see through his cultivation at all. Protect the little Buddha Venerable. The 5 old monks warily shielded the young monk in the center. Buddha Venerable. Mildly surprised, Fang Chen immediately tapped his chest, revealing the Buddhist swastika seal. We're on the same side. Calm yourselves. At the sight of that swastika seal, both the 5 old monks and the young monk hurriedly bowed in reverence. We greet the derivative Saint Buddha. Fang Chen fixed his gaze on the young monk, his tone gentle yet probing. No need for such formality. Is this the Buddha Venerable? The young monk replied in a still childish voice. This humble monk is the 18th Buddha Venerable of the Buddha domain, Huaiming, here to see the derivative Saint Buddha. Understanding dawned on Fang Chen. Indeed, the Buddha domain had 18 Buddha Venerables. Including the Lord Buddha, only 15 had ever appeared, leaving 3 unaccounted for. 1 had died on the Buddhist formation of West Spirit Mountain, slain by a 2, Sun Giant Emperor. And, of the remaining 2, 1 was this very young monk before him. No wonder a giant emperor had attacked them. There was a Buddha Venerable among the 6. That explained everything. A glint of excitement flickered in Fang Chen's eyes. Had a single act of kindness long ago really saved a Buddha Venerable of the Buddha domain? Wait, what Buddha domain? He's clearly a heavenly secret pavilion, Buddha Venerable. Is the great derivative Saint Buddha not worthy of having a Buddha Venerable as his disciple? Huaiming, your uncle, master wishes to test you. Fang Chen held out the Buddha's prayer beads and smiled. Do you recognize this object? The 5 old monks all gasped, clearly recognizing the origin of the beads. Their eyes filled with utmost reverence. These were the personal prayer beads of the Buddha. Wearing them long term would allow one to absorb the Buddhist resonance within, greatly benefiting cultivation. The moment the little Buddha Venerable's eyes fell upon the beads, he couldn't help exclaiming in awe, this is a paramount treasure of the Buddhist sect. He quickly pressed his palms together and chanted, Amitabha, I am blessed to behold the Buddha's personal prayer beads. Fang Chen said, your uncle, master intends to give you these prayer beads to wear for a long time.
What?
The little Buddha Venerable's face couldn't suppress a smile, but he immediately realized his lapse and hurriedly put on a hypocritical show. A monk should not be moved by external objects. Forgive me, forgive me. Fang Chen couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. The little fellow was quite good at putting on airs. He smiled. Yes, you have strong Buddha nature. These beads are yours to wear. However, this derivative Saint Buddha must first test whether you possess sufficient Buddhist power to do so. The little Buddha Venerable immediately puffed out his chest. Your disciple is willing to undergo the derivative Saint Buddha's test. Fang Chen smiled faintly, reached into the spatial mirror, and gently lifted out a slumbering old woman. She was a 9 apertures nascent soul from the 3 Pure Ones mountain. Back when the heavenly mountain lineage had attacked him, he had captured her and kept her stored inside the spatial mirror. Because of this, when the great battle with the ancient giants erupted and nascent souls of 9 apertures from various sects threw themselves into the fray, dying heroic deaths, she had been spared. One could say a calamity became a blessing. This person has languished in the madness of the 9 apertures nascent soul for many years. use the Buddha's prayer beads to guide her onto the right path. Until he could confirm the true effects of the Buddha's prayer beads, he dared not let Fairy Yunsheng attempt to attest her Tao and reach spirit transformation. The little Buddha Venerable pressed his palms together, accepted the task, and activated the beads on the spot. Streams of pale golden Buddhist light flew from the beads, swirling around. Most of it entered the slumbering old woman's body, while a small portion was absorbed by Fairy Yunsheng. Her eyes brightened. She too had gained some insight, and the aura of madness around her receded like the tide. Perhaps she wouldn't even need to descend into madness. Her Tao intent might yet reach perfection. She immediately sat cross-legged and silently meditated. Time passed, and half a day had gone by in the blink of an eye. The slumbering old woman suddenly opened her eyes. At the same moment, multicolored auspicious clouds gathered above the heavenly secret pavilion, and rays of divine light descended. The waves of spirit transformation rippled outward, reaching every corner of the taking great continent. The pavilion's people were all stirred into action, gathering before Fang Chen's secret chamber. As the divine light faded, the stone door of the chamber opened silently. Fang Chen stepped out, a smile on his face. Everyone, it has been a while. Liu Qingxian rushed forward joyfully, calling out, "Ah, Xiao Fan." Lu Zhu was even more ecstatic, throwing her arms around him. "Husband, when did you return? Why didn't you tell us?" Gong Kei, cradling her slightly swollen belly, had eyes brimming with joy. "Husband, are you all right?" Fang Chen embraced Liu Qingxian and Lu Zhu and walked over to Gong Kei. He crouched down and pressed his head against her belly. Gong Kei blushed. "What are you doing? He isn't kicking yet." Listening to the heartbeat within, Fang Chen felt a profound sense of contentment. This was the feeling of home. Gazing at the smiling faces of old friends all around, his heart grew even more at ease. If there were no ancient giants, no dark tide, no source of all evils, he would truly want to stop and simply live out his days with them. Just then, an elderly woman with clear eyes and a divine ring at the back of her head walked out of the stone door. The pavilion master's expression flickered with confusion, then he drew a sharp breath. "Elder Feng of the Three Pure Ones Mountain, you've awakened and reached spirit transformation." Elder Feng let out a long sigh, then knelt on one knee before Fang Chen. "Starfire Venerable, your grace in bestowing such a transformation is something this junior can never repay." Everyone present looked at each other, hearts full of shock. It was Fang Chen who had helped her awaken. Fang Chen swept his gaze over the crowd, a smile on his face, and declared loudly, "I have brought forth the Buddha's prayer beads, capable of guiding those lost in the madness of the nascent soul stage, allowing you to break through to spirit transformation. Those whose Tao intent is perfect or nearing perfection may boldly strive for spirit transformation." The heavenly secret pavilion was stunned for a moment, then erupted with sky-shaking cheers. Guziner exclaimed excitedly, "Doesn't that mean, as long as I reach the 8-aperture nascent soul, I can immediately use the aperture, opening divine spike to break through to T9 aperture nascent soul, then I can just leave the rest to Fang Chen and comfortably attain Tao enlightenment to become a divinity transformation expert." "Oh yeah, I'm saved." She glanced down at her flat chest and jumped 3 zhang high in sheer excitement. After experiencing 2 great battles, the strength of everyone in the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion had advanced by leaps and bounds. The pavilion master of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion had long reached the 7-aperture nascent soul, but had paused at this stage for a long time in order to seek the Tao. The Harten's slaving Demon Emperor and Gu Zinner successively broke through to the 7-aperture nascent soul. Xia Zheoj, Liu Qingxian, Yi Bangxia, Hua Wang, and others had also smoothly stepped into the 6-aperture nascent soul level. They all now possessed the qualifications to assault the divinity transformation realm in the near future. Gazing at the completely stirred-up Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, Fang Chen revealed a smile. Before the expedition to the Heavenly Realm, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion would produce several more divinity transformation experts. Reflecting on the past, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion initially had only one pavilion master at the 1-aperture nascent soul stage. And now, the once unattainable great cultivators of the late-stage nascent soul realm now gathered in clusters. Even those of the divinity transformation realm had appeared. Everything felt like a dream. Fang Chen said, "Everyone, seize the time to cultivate. If you have any questions, come and ask me. From now on, I will stay in the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion and not go anywhere else." Right now, he was focused on one thing alone, preparing for the battle in the Heavenly Realm. And the first thing to address was his own cultivation level. He needed to bury himself in quiet cultivation for a while. However, at that very moment, a figure in a long black dress silently appeared above them. Fang Chen sensed it, raised his head, and his eyes lit up. "Godmother, how did you know I've returned?" The compassionate mirror Grand Venerable, her expression heavy, descended before Fang Chen. She hesitated for a long time before speaking with a choked voice. "Fang Chen, could you leave the Central Plains?" Fang Chen raised his brows slightly. "Godmother, has something happened?" The compassionate mirror Grand Venerable looked at Fang Chen's youthful face, her heart filled with unspeakable grief. After several times wanting to speak but holding back, she finally took out a death character condensed from lightning arcs and said with sorrow, "The young emperor told me to bring this to you." Fang Chen narrowed his eyes, took the lightning arc condensed death character, and let out a soft, puzzled sound. The death character had been unremarkable in the compassionate mirror Grand Venerable's hands, but the moment it touched Fang Chen's palm, it sensed the void-flowing thunder force within his body and erupted on the spot. The lightning arcs scattered and transformed into the figure of the young emperor standing with hands behind his back. He was suspended high in the air, his gaze looking down upon all creation as he stared at Fang Chen and shouted coldly, "Those who cultivate the void-flowing thunder force shall be killed without mercy. 10 days from now, come to young Emperor Mountain to meet your death." The domineering and icy words reverberated like war drums in everyone's heart. The jubilant heavenly secrets pavilion instantly fell silent. As the young emperor's figure dissolved into thunderbolts, an invisible dark cloud hung over everyone's hearts. He was the young emperor, the foremost Grand Venerable of the Central Plains. His most glorious battle record was joining forces with the smiling Grand Libationer to slay a sage-level hellish creature formed from a leaf of the Calamity, overcoming Black Lotus. To this day, it is said he has never been defeated by anyone. The compassionate mirror Grand Venerable lowered her head in shame and whispered, "Fanner, Godmother does not wish to see bloodshed between you two. Could you just avoid this? He truly will kill you." This was the first time the young emperor had issued a life-or death challenge to someone with such solemnity. The killing intent was resolute beyond anything seen before. Fang Chen sighed inwardly. He was not surprised by the young emperor's challenge. When he had cultivated the void-flowing thunder force to perfection, he had already anticipated that this day would come. The decisive battle between the two of them was inevitable. Yet what he cared most about was not victory or defeat, but his godmother. She was stuck in the middle, suffering the most. No matter who lived or died, she would be in anguish. Fang Chen gently gripped her shoulder and said gravely, "This is my fault. If I had known you were the young emperor's mother, I would never have agreed to become your godson." "Then you wouldn't be in this difficult position." The compassionate mirror Grand Venerable said sorrowfully, "Fanner, you only need to leave the Central Plains and avoid this fight." Fang Chen gently cut her off and asked in return, "I suppose the young emperor must have told you to warn me that if I don't come by the deadline, he will annihilate the heavenly Ekrit's pavilion, right? I can leave, but can they all follow me? If he can't find them, won't the young emperor go to the mainland to find the Azure Cloud sect, to find Lone Boat City? Can I carry an entire continent on my back and leave?" The young emperor's character, what he would do, what he thinks, it was all too easy to guess. The compassionate mirror Grand Venerable's face twisted in pain as she lowered her head and leaned on Fang Chen's shoulder. Why did it have to come to this? Fang Chen immediately felt a searing heat and dampness on his shoulder. His own heart ached deeply. At that moment, Gong Kei stepped forward, gently patted her back, and softly consoled, "Mother-in-law, don't grieve. What if the fight ends in a draw? This will only make things harder for Fang Chen." Upon hearing these words, the compassionate mirror Grand Venerable realized that she was hindering Fang Chen. Fang Chen was already far weaker than the young emperor. If he carried this psychological burden from her as well, he would be even less able to focus on the battle. She was harming Fang Chen. Her heart gave a violent jolt. She quickly wiped away her tears, forced herself to rally, and said, "Kei is right. What if it ends in a draw?" As she spoke, she solemnly took out 2 spiritual herbs, one black, one white, and pulled Fang Chen's hand over, pressing the herbs gently into his palm. Yet her voice still trembled uncontrollably. "Fanner, take this black spiritual herb. It can help you break through the 3 declines of heaven and man." And she drew a deep breath, her gaze suddenly turning unshakably resolute. "I will find a way to search for some life-protecting treasures for you. Godmother will definitely help you." Fang Chen lowered his head and stared at the all too familiar black spiritual herb in his palm. A memory instantly surged into his mind, and he immediately understood where this item had come from. The muscles on Fang Chen's face tensed imperceptibly. He said in a heavy tone, "Godmother thinks I would accept charity from the young emperor." His eyes suddenly grew sharp as blades, and he spoke each word with devastating force. "I would rather go to the battle with the cultivation of the second decline of heaven and man." Hearing this, the compassionate mirror Grand Venerable felt as if her heart was violently wrenched. She could only let out a long, drawn-out sigh. It was precisely because she knew the origin of this spiritual herb that she had deliberately withheld it earlier, knowing that with Fang Chen's temperament, he would absolutely refuse to consume it. But she never imagined that Fang Chen would recognize it at a single glance. Now she was stuck. She couldn't persuade him, and she couldn't not persuade him. For a moment, she stood frozen in place. Nearby, Gong Kei could no longer bear to see her mother-in-law so conflicted. She stepped forward with graceful movements and said gently, "Mother-in-law, let me hold on to this spiritual herb for Fang Chen for now." The compassionate Mirror Grand Venerable felt a wave of relief, as if grasping at a life-saving straw. She hastily stuffed the spiritual herb into Gong Kei's hands. Her own persuasion was useless, but what if Kei's persuasion succeeded? Watching how considerate Gong Kei was, she inwardly marveled even more. This was truly a sensible and wonderful daughter-in-law. Afraid that staying longer would only make Fang Chen more troubled, she said gently, "Fanner, cultivate well. Godmother won't disturb you here." Although she said this, she had already made up her mind. She would travel across every corner of the 9 provinces, viz., the reclusive Grand Venerables, and gather treasures at any cost, all to ensure that Fang Chen could keep his life in the decisive battle. Fang Chen seemed to see through her intentions, and couldn't help but sigh, "Godmother, you don't need to do anything for me." However, the compassionate Mirror Grand Venerable gave him no chance to dissuade her. With a flash of her figure, she instantly teleported away, leaving behind only an unquestionable sentence that echoed in the air, "You cultivate in peace. Leave everything else to Godmother." Gazing at the fading afterimage she left behind, Fang Chen was filled with a whirlwind of emotions, both immensely comforted and deeply saddened. His godmother had it far too hard. At the very moment, her afterimage completely dissipated. The void beside Fang Chen suddenly rippled, and a figure silently emerged. It was none other than the first-grade pavilion master of Fang Mountain. He stood with hands clasped behind his back, his gaze also fixed on the direction where the compassionate Mirror Grand Venerable had left. After a moment of silence, he said in an extremely indifferent tone, "I shall gather some law force for you." Fang Chen was slightly taken aback. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Why did the first-grade pavilion master of Fang Mountain appear exactly after the compassionate Mirror Grand Venerable departed, not a moment earlier or later? He glanced sideways at the pavilion master and blurted out, "Hey, tell me, you wouldn't be deliberately hiding from the compassionate Mirror Grand Venerable, would you?" The body of the Lord of Fangshan, first-rank pavilion, imperceptibly swayed a bit, and then he said with a stern face, "Nothing of the sort." Reacting so strongly, "Then it seems it must be true." The surprise on Fang Chen's face deepened, and he pressed, "You two, could it be you know each other?" The Lord of Fangshan, first-rank pavilion, suddenly turned and glared at him, his tone even carrying a trace of embarrassment from being exposed. "Just a kid, don't guess wildly." Before his words faded, without waiting for Fang Chen to ask further, he urged hurriedly, "You must seize the time to cultivate. I have inquired from many sources about the young emperor's achievements in the battle against the ancient giants." Speaking of this, his expression turned extremely solemn, and he said in a deep voice, "This person ranks 3rd on the merit stele, his position even surpassing the star abyss greed. At Venerable, his strength is indisputable. You may not be his match." Having said this, he did not linger. His figure flashed and similarly transformed into an afterimage, dispersing gracefully. Upon hearing this, Fang Chen's heart could not help but feel a slight chill. The Lord of Fangshan, first-rank pavilion, knew his background very well, and was one of the very few who had personally witnessed him unleashing the primordial heaven, imprisoning God in the entire world. Probably no one knew his combat limits better than the Lord. Yet, under such circumstances, the Lord of Fangshan, first-rank pavilion, still viewed him so unfavorably. Just how terrifyingly powerful was the young emperor? Not only him, but all the people in the hall now had tightly furrowed brows, their eyes filled with deep, indelible worry. In this battle, Fang Chen was likely facing more danger than safety. Sensing the oppressive atmosphere that had almost congealed into substance, Fang Chen did not want to affect everyone's Dao heart because of his own affairs. He gave a carefree smile. "All right, I will also go into seclusion for a period of time." His gaze swept over the crowd, encouraging them. You all must also intensify your cultivation, striving to reach soul formation as soon as possible. After speaking, he turned and stepped into a secret chamber. Gong Kei naturally followed suit with light, graceful lotus steps, entering together with him. Once the stone door behind them slowly closed, Gong Kei silently took out the black and white spirit herbs, looked at Fang Chen, and asked with a light sigh, "Husband, this spirit tea herb, are we truly not going to take it?" Fang Chen hesitated for a moment, then still reached out and accepted it. He stared at the black spirit herb in his hand, slightly shook his head, and asked in return, "Do you know why the young emperor specifically dispatched his godmother to deliver The medicine?" Hearing this, Gong Kei's elegant brows slightly furrowed, now finding the situation suspicious. By all logic, delivering a challenge letter and gifting medicine could be accomplished by casually dispatching an envoy. Why was it necessary to trouble the godmother to come personally? She lowered her head to look at the spirit herb in her hands, a flash of insight sparking in her mind, and instantly understood. The young emperor knew that with your pride, you would certainly not consume the spirit herb he sent, so he deliberately sent the godmother. He wanted to make you mistakenly believe that this spirit herb was found by the godmother for you, so that you would consume it. Yet, despite his exhaustive schemes, he never imagined that you would recognize the true owner of this spirit herb at a single glance. Fang Chen slowly nodded, a hint of coldness flashing in his eyes. This young emperor is far stronger than his old man. The corner of his mouth curled into a mocking sneer. Before killing, he still thinks of helping the enemy improve their strength first, lest the enemy be too weak and killing them would diminish the young emperor's style. Truly magnificent boldness. Upon hearing this, Gong Kei let out a faint, wistful sigh. So, does this mean you are absolutely set on not eating this spirit herb? Eating it would be accepting charity from the young emperor. Before the battle even begins, one would already lose in morale. Given Fang Chen's unyielding nature, he would naturally never eat it. Of course, I won't eat it. However, Fang Chen stared fixedly at the black spirit herb in his palm, and a thought suddenly flashed through his mind like lightning. The corner of his mouth revealed a playful expression, and he changed tack. Though I won't eat this one, it doesn't mean I can't eat another one. Gong Kei's beautiful eyes were full of bewilderment. Husband, what are you planning to do? Fang Chen's smile grew even wider. As if performing a magic trick, he pulled out his swindling treasure, the dog bowl, and chuckled. I was just worrying about what to replicate. Isn't this like when drowsiness comes, the young emperor's old man sends me a pillow? Watch how today, I'll strip that old bastard clean of his black spirit herbs. At the thought of that old bastard, the heavenly patrol great sage, disregarding his own status and repeatedly trying to kill him, a chilling gleam flickered in Fang Chen's eyes. He took the black spirit herb from Gong Kei's hand and without hesitation tossed it into the dog bowl. With a flash of light, an entirely new, identical black spirit herb suddenly appeared at the bottom of the bowl. Gong Kei was so startled that she quickly covered her red lips with a small hand, afraid she might cry out, "This bowl can actually copy things across distance." Fang Chen picked up the newly replicated spirit herb and examined it carefully. He saw that the size, shape, and even the age of every vein were exactly identical to the one he remembered the heavenly patrol great sage forcibly stuffing into him once before. To be precise, I took this from the young emperor's old man across space. A confident smile spread across his face, and he murmured, "If that old fool knew that I am eating his spirit herb while going to fight his son, do you think he would be so enraged that he would charge back from the depths of the starry sky straight to the central continent?" Eating the young emperor's spirit herb would be accepting his favor, weakening oneself. But as for his old man's spirit herb, Fang Chen could eat it with a clear conscience. The opportunity to assault the heaven, man 3 decays, has it not just landed in my hands? Gong Kei's bright eyes were instantly brimming with joy and pride, and she exclaimed cheerfully, "I knew my husband would definitely find a way. I'll go inform everyone right now, so they don't need to worry their minds over this matter anymore." Seeing her turn to leave, Fang Chen's gaze fell upon her slightly bulging belly, and a dense, unshakable guilt suddenly surged in his heart. He, who was about to become a father, had spent far too little time accompanying her and the child in her womb. He instinctively grasped Gong Kei's soft hand and said gently, "I'll notify them through the moon realm later. You stay and keep me company by my side." He paused, then added, "Even if just sitting to the side, watching me cultivate." Hearing this, Gong Kei's bright eyes instantly sparkled with a crystalline, joyful light. Was this not the first time Fang Chen had ever actively invited someone to accompany him while cultivating? She carefully held her belly, gently sat down beside Fang Chen, then tenderly leaned her head against his broad shoulder, her face painted with contentment. That heavy reliance on his shoulder also pressed Fang Chen's long, drifting heart down, making it exceptionally settled. After briefly instructing a few matters in the Moon Realm, he focused his mind, held his breath, brought out the lifetime insights of the 9 Great Libationers, and silently began to contemplate them. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Fang Chen slowly opened his eyes. Within his eyes was an expression of enlightenment, yet also a hint of deep astonishment. Gong Kei had been quietly gazing at Fang Chen's angular face. Seeing him open his eyes, she immediately cast a concerned, inquiring look. Husband, is the 3rd domain now complete? Fang Chen softly exhaled a turbid breath and shook his head. How could it be that fast? Searching for parts useful to my own Tao from others' insights is no different from fishing a needle out of the ocean. Fortunately, these 9 Great Libationers seem to have been carefully selected, extracting only those insights useful to me. I believe that within a few days, I'll be able to comprehend the 3rd domain from these. However, he changed tack, his brows furrowing tightly. The lifetime insights of these 9 Great Libationers are somewhat strange. Within them, there actually lie 9 extreme emotions. It's also fortunate they only gave this much. If they had crammed their complete insights into my head all at once, these 9 extreme emotions could probably instantly scatter my consciousness and turn me into a madman completely dominated by 9 emotions. At this, a trace of lingering fear appeared on Fang Chen's face. He had once naively believed that the drunken wine Great Libationer simply loved to drink, but after comprehending, he realized that she actually possessed a greed etched deep into her very bones. And as for the grave weeping Great Libationer, he had originally assumed that person's law was promiscuity, but after comprehending, he was shocked to discover that to every woman, that person poured out an extreme, genuine love. As for the laughing Great Libationer and the weeping Great Libationer, they respectively correspond to joy and sorrow. The Tianju Great Libationer controls boundless rage. The remaining Great Libationers each also represent an extreme emotion. Together, they just happen to assemble the 8 great emotions: joy, anger, sorrow, happiness, love, hatred, desire, and greed. There is also a more obscure emotion belonging to the Great Libationer of taking Great Province. Fang Chen struggled to discern it for a long time, yet still could not tell which one. He only felt it was even more extreme and more dangerous than the emotions of the other 8 Great Libationers. Just then he felt a swelling, throbbing pain in his head, as if 9 completely different intense emotions, from his prolonged contemplation, were desperately drilling deep into his consciousness. "Husband, are you all right?" Gong Kei, seeing this, immediately felt her heart tighten with worry as she steadied him. Fang Chen vigorously rubbed his brow and said in a deep voice, "I need to pause for a moment. I must empty my mind completely before I can continue comprehending." Seeing this, Gong Kei quickly rose and knelt behind him, extending her slender jade-like fingers to gently massage his scalp with tender consideration, asking softly, "Is this better?" With eyes closed, Fang Chen felt the gentle pressure from her fingertips, and his taut nerves gradually relaxed. He said quietly, "I'll be fine after a short rest. Don't exhaust yourself, and take care of our child." Gazing at Fang Chen, who had temporarily stopped cultivating and looked somewhat weary, Gong Kei felt a deep sense of helplessness well up in her heart, unable to offer any tangible help. However, a thought suddenly flashed through her mind. She couldn't help but press her red lips together slightly, and a charming blush instantly rose to her cheeks. A moment later, Fang Chen was meditating with closed eyes, emptying his thoughts, when he suddenly felt a slight weight on his legs, as if something soft and warm had settled upon them. He opened his eyes and looked down, only to see Gong Kei gently draped over his lap like a docile cat. "Kei, what are you doing?" At his voice, Gong Kei raised her head, revealing an exquisitely beautiful face veiled with shy mist, and whispered like a mosquito, "I came to help refresh your mind." Before she even finished speaking, she lifted a hand to gently tuck her cascading jet black hair aside, then lowered her head deeply. This was harming Fang Chen. Her heart suddenly gave a violent leap. She quickly wiped away her tears, forced herself to rally, and said, "Kei is right. What if it ends in a draw?" As she spoke, she solemnly retrieved 2 spirit herbs, one black and one white, then took Fang Chen's hand and gently placed them in his palm, her voice trembling uncontrollably. "Fanner, consume this black spirit herb. It will help you break through the 3 declines of heaven and man." And also, she took a deep breath, her gaze suddenly becoming incomparably resolute. I will find a way to seek out some protective treasures for you. Your godmother will definitely help you. Fang Chen looked down at the very familiar black spirit herb in his palm. A memory instantly surged into his mind, and he immediately understood where this thing had come from. The muscles on Fang Chen's face tightened imperceptibly, and he said in a deep voice, "Does godmother think that I would accept charity from the young emperor?" His gaze abruptly sharpened like a blade, and he spoke each word with a resounding force. "I would rather face the battle at the second stage of the three declines." Upon hearing this, great venerable Lianjing felt as if her heart had been fiercely wrenched, and it could only turn into a long sigh. She knew well the origin of this spirit herb, which was why she had deliberately concealed it earlier, knowing that with Fang Chen's temperament, he would absolutely refuse to take it. But she never expected that Fang Chen would recognize it at a single glance. Now, what could she do? She could neither persuade him nor refrain from trying, and for a moment was frozen in place. Gong Kei beside them could not bear to see her mother-in-law so distressed, so she stepped forward with graceful, lotus-like steps and said gently, "Mother-in-law, let me take tea. Is spirit herb for Fang Chen for now." Great venerable Lianjing felt her heart ease, as if grasping at a straw, and hastily stuffed the spirit herb into Gong Kei's hands. If her own persuasion was useless, what if Kei's persuasion might succeed? Seeing how understanding Gong Kei was, she sighed inwardly even more. She truly was a sensible and wonderful daughter-in-law. Afraid that staying longer would only upset Fang Chen, she said gently, "Fanner, cultivate well. Your godmother won't disturb you here any longer." Though she said this, she had already made up her mind in her heart. She planned to travel throughout the 9 provinces, visiting those reclusive great venerables, and spare no expense to collect treasures, all to ensure Fang Chen could preserve high-s life in the decisive battle. Fang Chen seemed to see through her thoughts and couldn't help but sigh. "Godmother, you needn't do anything for me." Unexpectedly, great venerable Lianjing gave him no chance to dissuade her. Her figure flickered, and she instantly teleported away, leaving behind only a peremptory declaration echoing in the air, "Cultivate with peace of mind, leave all other matters to your godmother." Gazing at the lingering afterimage of her departure, Fang Chen felt a surge of mixed emotions in his heart, immense comfort and a deep sorrow at once. His godmother, it was truly too difficult for her. Just at the moment, her afterimage completely dissipated. The void beside Fang Chen suddenly rippled, and a figure silently emerged. It was none other than the master of Fang Chen First Rank Pavilion. He stood with hands clasped behind his back, his gaze also fixed on the direction great venerable Lianjing had departed. After a moment's silence, he said in an extremely indifferent tone, "I'll gather some of the power of laws for you." Fang Chen was slightly taken aback upon hearing this. Wasn't this a bit too coincidental? How was it that the pavilion master of Fang Chen First Rank Pavilion didn't appear earlier or later, but precisely right after great venerable Lianjing had just left? He shot the pavilion master a sideways glance and blurted out, "Hey, tell me, you weren't deliberately avoiding great venerable Lianjing, were you?" The pavilion master's figure imperceptibly swayed, then he stiffened his face and said, "No such thing." Such a strong reaction. Then it seems it is true. The astonishment on Fang Chen's face deepened, and he pressed, "You two, do you know each other?" The pavilion master whirled around and glared at him, his tone actually carrying a hint of embarrassment at being exposed. "You're a child. Don't make wild guesses." Before he finished, without waiting for Fang Chen to ask further, he urged hastily, "You hurry up and cultivate. I've inquired from many sources about the young emperor's battle record against the ancient giants." At this, his expression turned extremely grave, and he said in a deep voice, "This person ranks 3rd on the merit stele, even surpassing great venerable Star Abyss in rank. His strength is beyond dispute. You might not be his match." Having said this, he didn't linger. His figure flickered, and he too dissipated into an afterimage. Upon hearing this, Fang Chen felt a chill in his heart. The pavilion master of Fang Chen First Rank Pavilion was very familiar with his background, and was among the very few who had personally witnessed him unleash the primordial heaven imprisoning gourd. In the entire world, probably few people knew the limits of his combat strength better than the pavilion master. Yet under these circumstances, the pavilion master still had such little optimism for him. Then how terrifyingly strong was the young emperor? Not only him, but everyone in the hall also had furrowed brows, their eyes filled with deep, lingering worry. This battle, Fang Chen was likely to meet with disaster rather than fortune. Sensing the almost palpable oppressive atmosphere around him, Fang Chen did not wish his own affairs to affect everyone's Dao hearts. He smiled freely and said, "All right, I too will go into seclusion for a period." His gaze swept over the crowd as he encouraged them. You should also intensify your cultivation and strive to achieve the divine transformation realm soon. After saying this, he turned and stepped into a secret chamber. Gong Kei naturally followed with graceful steps right behind him. Once the stone door behind them slowly closed, Gong Kei silently took out the black and white spirit herbs. Gazing at Fang Chen, she sighed softly and asked, "Husband, these spirit herbs, do we really not want them?" Fang Chen hesitated for a moment, then still reached out and took them. Staring at the black spirit herb in his hand, he shook his head slightly and asked in return, "Do you know why the young emperor specifically sent Godmother to deliver the medicine?" Hearing this, Gong Kei's delicate brows furrowed slightly, and she finally felt something was amiss. Logically speaking, delivering a challenge letter and offering medicine could be done by any messenger. Why had they taken the trouble to send Godmother personally? She looked down at the spirit herb in her hand, and a flash of insight illuminated her mind as she instantly understood. The young emperor knew that given your unyielding pride, why, Wu would never accept a spirit herb from him, so he purposely sent my godmother. He wanted you to mistakenly believe this spirit herb was procured for you by your godmother, and thus take it. Yet, for all his meticulous scheming, he never imagined you would recognize the herb's true owner at a single glance. Fang Chen nodded slowly, a trace of frost flickering in his eyes. This young emperor is far more formidable than his father ever was. A mocking curve tugged at the corner of his mouth as he sneered. Before killing someone, he even considers helping his enemy raise their strength first, lest the foe be too weak, diminishing the prestige of the young emperor when he strikes. What grand magnanimity! Gong Kei listened and let out a faint, melancholy sigh. In that case, husband, you are absolutely resolved not to eat this spirit herb. To eat it would be to accept the young emperor's charity. Before the battle even begins, one's spirit would already suffer a defeat. With Fang Chen's unbreakable, steel-willed nature, he would naturally, decisively, never eat it. Of course, I won't eat it. Yet Fang Chen's gaze bore down on the black spirit herb in his palm. Suddenly, a thought blazed through his mind like lightning striking flint, and the corner of his lips curled with a playful smirk. He shifted his tone. This one I won't eat. But that doesn't mean I can't eat another one. H.M. Gong Kei's beautiful eyes brimmed with perplexity. Husband, what are you planning to do? Fang Chen's grin widened. Like a conjurer, he pulled out his devious treasure, the dog bowl, and chuckled. I was just worrying what to replicate next. Isn't this like the young emperor's father, sending me a pillow just when I'm feeling drowsy? Watch me today. I'll fleece every last black spirit herb from that old bastard until he's cleaned out. The moment he recalled how that old wretch, the Grand Sage of Sky Patrol, had disregarded all decorum and repeatedly tried to deal him fatal blows, a sliver of chilling, intimidating light surged in Fang Chen's eyes. He took the black spirit herb from Gong Kei's hand and, without hesitation, tossed it into the dog bowl. There was a flash of light, and suddenly at the bottom of the bowl lay a brand. New, completely identical black spirit herb. Ah! Gong Kei was so astonished, she hurriedly covered her red lips with a small hand, afraid she might cry out. This bowl can replicate things across space. Fang Chen picked up the newly replicated spirit herb and examined it meticulously. Its size, shape, and even the vintage of every texture matched exactly the one the Grand Sage of Sky Patrol had once forced upon him, down to the finest detail. To be precise, I took this from the young emperor's old man, through a barrier of space. A confident smile spread across his face as he murmured, If that old scoundrel ever found out I'm eating his spirit herb while fighting his son, don't you think he'd be so enraged? He'd tear back from the depths of the starry sky straight to the middle land. To eat the young emperor's spirit herb would be to accept a favor, weakening one's own moral high ground. But eating his old man's spirit herb, Fang Chen could do that with a perfectly clear conscience. An opportunity to assault the three decays of the heaven, man, right in my hands. Joy and pride instantly flooded Gong Kei's bright eyes as she chirped excitedly. I knew my husband would find a way. I'll go tell everyone right now so they can stop worrying over this. Seeing her turn to leave, Fang Chen's gaze fell upon her slightly rounded belly, and a profound, thick remorse welled up in his heart, one he could not dissolve. He, a man soon to be a father, had spent far, far too little time accompanying her and the child within her womb. He instinctively took hold of Gong Kei's warm, soft hand and said gently, I can inform them through the moon realm shortly. You, stay here, accompany me. He paused, then added, Even if you just sit beside me and watch me cultivate, it will be enough." Upon hearing this, a glittering light of delight sparkled in Gong Kei's bright eyes. Was this the first time Fang Chen had ever voluntarily invited someone to keep him company during cultivation? Carefully cradling her belly, she gently settled down beside Fang Chen, then gracefully leaned her lovely head against his broad shoulder, her face painted with perfect contentment. That solid, weighty reliance on his shoulder also settled Fang Chen's long, adrift heart with an extraordinary sense of grounded peace. After briefly relaying a few matters through the moon realm, he concentrated his spirit, held his breath, and brought out the lifetimes of insight from the 9 Grand Libationers, silently beginning his contemplation. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Fang Chen slowly opened his eyes. Within his gaze shone a light of dawning comprehension, yet there also lurked a deep trace of astonishment. Gong Kei had been quietly gazing at Fang Chen's sharp, chiseled features. The moment he opened his eyes, she immediately cast him a look of concerned inquiry. "Husband, is the 3rd domain perfected?" Fang Chen exhaled a slow, turbid breath and shook his head, not nearly that fast. Searching through others' insights for the parts useful to my own Tao is no different from seeking a needle in the vast ocean. Thankfully, it seems these 9 Grand Libationers were meticulously selected, and they only extracted the insights beneficial to me. In a few days at most, I should be able to use these to comprehend the 3rd domain. However, he shifted his tone, his brows furrowing deeply. The lifetimes of insight from these 9 Grand Libationers are somewhat strange. Within them, there are actually 9 kinds of ultimate, all-consuming emotions. It's fortunate they gave only this much. Had they crammed their complete, unedited insights into me all at once, these 9 extreme emotions would likely have instantly shattered my consciousness, reducing me completely to a madman enslaved by 9 warring feelings. As he spoke, a flicker of lingering fear crossed Fang Chen's face. He had once naively thought that the drunken Grand Libationer simply loved to drink, but after meditating on her enlightenment, he realized her essence was the bone, deep vice of greed. As for the grave-weeping Grand Libationer, he had originally assumed the other's path was wanton affection, but only after comprehension did he discover with a shock that this person poured the ultimate, genuine love into every single woman he encountered. The laughing Grand Libationer and the weeping Grand Libationer corresponded respectively to joy and sorrow. The Grand Libationer of Tianju wielded towering, overwhelming rage. The remaining Grand Libationers, each likewise, embodied an ultimate emotion. Together, they perfectly assembled the 8 great emotions: joy, rage, sorrow, delight, love, hatred, desire, and greed. There was also a yet more obscure emotion belonging to the Grand Libationer of Taikang Province. Fang Chen had struggled to discern it for ages, yet he still could not tell which one it was. He only sensed it was even more extreme and more perilous than the emotions of the other 8 Grand Libationers. Just then he felt a swollen, throbbing pang inside his skull, as though 9 starkly distinct violent emotions, stirred by his prolonged contemplation, were desperately burrowing into the depths of his consciousness. "Husband, are you all right?" Gong Kei's heart lurched in worry at the sight, and she reached out to steady him. Fang Chen rubbed his temples forcefully and said in a grave tone, "I must pause for a while. I have to empty my mind completely before I can continue this contemplation." Seeing this, Gong Kei quickly rose and knelt behind him, stretching out her slender, jade-like fingers. Attentively, she began to gently press and massage his scalp, asking in a soft voice, "Like this, is it better?" With eyes closed, Fang Chen felt the tender strength from her fingertips, and his taut nerves gradually relaxed. He whispered, "I'll be fine after a short rest. Don't tire yourself too much. Take care of our child." Gong Kei gazed at Fang Chen, who had temporarily halted his cultivation and appeared slightly worn, yet she could offer no substantive help. A deep feeling of helplessness inevitably surged within her heart. But suddenly a thought streaked through her mind. Her red lips unconsciously pursed, and a captivating blush instantly flew onto her cheeks. A short while later, Fang Chen was sitting with his eyes closed, regulating his breath and emptying his thoughts, when he suddenly felt a light weight press down on his legs, as if something warm and soft had settled there. He opened his eyes and looked down only to find Gong Kei, just like a docile little cat, gently lying on his thighs. "Kei, what are you doing?" Gong Kei raised her head at the sound, revealing an exquisite, peerless face veiled in a bashful, watery mist. Her voice was almost as faint as a mosquito's buzz. "I'll help refresh your spirits." Before her words faded, she lifted a hand and gracefully swept her cascading raven, black hair to one side, then bowed her head deeply. Fang Chen drew a light breath, tilted his head back, and slowly closed his eyes. About half an hour later, Gong Kei quietly rose and asked gently, "Feeling better?" Fang Chen opened his eyes. They were radiant and full of vitality, their light clear and bright. His expression, having attained profound realization, was even more serene than that of a Buddha. He tilted his head slightly and whispered, "Kei, I have wronged you." Gong Kei raised her hand to wipe the corner of her mouth, turned her face away shyly, and said in a tiny voice, "Don't say that. Hurry and cultivate." She paused, then lowered her voice even more. "If you're tired, I'll help you again." Fang Chen's gaze instantly turned fiery. He immediately reined in his distracting thoughts and threw himself back into enlightenment. The drive to cultivate was now even stronger than before. 3 days passed in a flash. Finally, a light of complete understanding shone in Fang Chen's eyes. He murmured softly, "Grasses wither and flourish, flowers bloom and fall, the sky has cloudy and clear days." Just like Chuan, what use is an immortal body? She lacks youth, marriage, children, a life of mutual support, a future of growing old together. Isn't that also a kind of deficiency? Temporary flawlessness doesn't mean perfection. Only through flaws and fulfillment can one achieve true completion. At that moment, his third domain finally took shape. An almost imperceptible fluctuation slowly emanated from him, rapidly spreading to every corner of the heavenly mystery pavilion. On the square, Fang Yuzai was carrying a spiked club 10 times his size, chasing the little tiger, the first moon demon emperor, and the western sea crown prince across the ground. It cackled weirdly, "Wahahaha, crushing weaklings feels amazing." Already a 6-orifice demon emperor, it was instructing the 3 demons in cultivation, and that spiked club had left many wounds on them, especially the western sea crown prince, who was only a 3-orifice demon emperor, already had a head full of bumps from being knocked. He clutched his head and shouted angrily, "You damned dragon, you're so ruthless." Fang Yuzai glared and snorted. "HMPH, Sister Xuanxuan told me to give you special attention. Since you're still talking back, it means you haven't trained enough. Take another hit." The western sea crown prince tried to dodge, but couldn't in time, and was immediately struck on the forehead. However, at that very moment, a wave of divine transformation swept by. Not only did the western sea crown prince not feel pain, but when Fang Yuzai's attack landed, the bumps on his head visibly healed somewhat. The power lost from their sparring was also instantly restored. Fang Yuzai was momentarily stunned, then raised the club and struck again. As a result, all of the western sea crown prince's injuries were healed, and the nascent soul power he had lost was fully restored. With a clang, Fang Yuzai was so shocked that the spiked club slipped from his grasp. He shrieked at the top of his lungs, "It's haunted." Inside the secret chamber, Fang Chen observed the scene outside and revealed a satisfied smile. This was his third domain. Absorbing enemy attacks, healing his own injuries, and replenishing lost power. As long as his domain could be maintained, and the enemy wasn't strong enough to kill or severely wound him in one strike. In theory, he would grow stronger the longer he fought. Of course, the gains from this seclusion were far more than this. He glanced sideways and saw Gong Kei placing a black spirit herb into a dog bowl. Under her delighted gaze, another black spirit herb slowly emerged. In just 3 days, they had obtained 3 more black spirit herbs from the Grand Sage of Heavenly Patrol. As long as the other party remained unaware, they could strip the others' black spirit herbs clean. Fang Chen left this matter entirely in Kei's hands, while he himself took out the black spirit herb he had copied earlier. With an expectant look, he popped it into his mouth and swallowed. An unimaginably vast spiritual power surged into his body like a mountain torrent breaking loose. He felt as if what he had eaten wasn't just a spirit herb, but nearly half the resources of the Taikang Grand State. His flesh and blood rapidly underwent qualitative transformation, his cultivation soared, and a fearsome aura of the 3 declines swept out in all directions like a monstrous wave. Meanwhile, at the teleportation array in the underground palace of Kingly Mountain, a flash of light and the stunning figure of the Stars Mountain Master, her silver hair flowing, emerged. Beside her was a graceful woman in an exquisite cyan dress, wearing a beautiful mask. Who else could it be but the Zue Fairy? No, more precisely, it was Liu Ruyan. "Master, I don't want to go to the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion." The Zue Fairy's hand was tightly held by the Stars Mountain Master, unable to break free. Around her swirled an indistinct aura of temporal chaos and madness. After the battle with the ancient giants, she had astonishingly stepped into the ranks of a Torifus nascent soul. However, her Tao of time had still not reached perfection. The Star's Mountain Master poked her forehead with some annoyance and said, "Are you stupid? If we don't go to the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion, where will we find an orifice opening divine needle for you? Without it, how will you break through to 9? Orifice, nascent soul. Do you want to stay at 8, orifice forever, going mad from time to time? So many people want to beg an orifice opening needle from the pavilion, but have no connections. Yet you have ties with Fang Chen. If you just ask, he will certainly give one." Liu Ruyan replied bitterly, "Master, things between Fang Chen and me ended long ago. Both of us have let go of each other. Why must you push me in front of him, embarrassing us both?" The Star's Mountain Master slowly shook her head and countered, "Have you really let go? If you have, why did you go into secluded cultivation and not come out after Fang Chen saved you in Gixu Prefecture last time?" Liu Ruyan slightly lowered her head. I just gained some insights during the battle and wanted to cultivate. Master, don't read too much into it." The Star's Mountain Master looked straight at her and asked, "And now, if you've let go, why are you afraid to see him?" Liu Ruyan remained silent. The Star's Mountain Master sighed and softened her tone. "Fine, you don't have to say anything when we get there. I'll plead on your behalf. While that kid is still at the 2nd heavenly decline, I can still keep him in check. In a few more years, once he breaks through to the 3rd heavenly decline." She had just spoken when suddenly a wave of 3rd heavenly decline aura from a divine transformation swept over from the direction of the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion. She was stunned and blurted out, "Who's breaking through? The Heavenly Mystery Pavilion is impressive. They've already gathered several divine transformation experts, and now someone is breaking through to the 3rd heavenly decline. At that level, they're a top-tier powerhouse in the Central Plains. Let's go quickly and see. If it's a familiar divine transformation expert, you can cozy up to him and see if we can invite him to our Star's Mountain." Liu Ruyan no longer hesitated and gently nodded. For one, she was curious who exactly was breaking through. For another, after the battle with the ancient giants, the divine transformation experts of the various powers had nearly half fallen. Now was the time for the factions to recruit new forces. When the two arrived at the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion, they found everyone gathered in front of a secret chamber, with several divine transformation experts particularly conspicuous. Red Demon Venerable, True Word Honored One, Lu Zhu, Shu Buxu, and Dark Knight Asura King all exuded powerful auras. By the time they drew near, the phenomenon in the secret chamber had just ended. With a crunch, the stone door opened, and Fang Chen and Gong Keiyi walked out side by side. Although the divine ring behind him was already concealed, the 3rd heavenly decline aura he exuded was unmistakable. The Red Demon Venerable watched in awe. She had personally witnessed Fang Chen, from a mere core formation cultivator, break through to nascent soul, attain divine transformation, and now, with astonishing speed, directly reach the 3rd heavenly decline, almost catching up to her. Filled with emotion, she bowed in congratulation. "Congratulations, Starfire Venerable, on breaking through to the 3rd heavenly decline." The crowd also joined in offering congratulations. "Congratulations, Starfire Venerable, on reaching even greater heights. Congratulations, husband, on arriving at the realm of 3 declines." The Star's Mountain Master staggered, grabbing Liu Ruyan's arm tightly to steady herself. She trembled. Fang Chen. It was actually him who broke through to the 3rd heavenly decline. Why did I let him go back then? Why didn't I force the two of you to consummate your marriage? She felt a sweetness in her throat, as if blood was about to gush forth, crying out in regret and pain, "I was wrong. I was truly wrong. From the very beginning, I shouldn't have let him go. If I hadn't let him go, Ruyan wouldn't have been widowed, and if Ruyan hadn't been widowed, I wouldn't have fallen to this state." Liu Ruyan paid no attention to her master's complaints. Her own heart felt as if a medicine bottle had been knocked over, a mixture of bitterness, sourness, and astringency. It seemed that every time she saw Fang Chen, he appeared before her in an even higher and more perfect form. She silently counseled herself in her heart, "Ruyan, it's all in the past. Calm your mind. Whether he is doing well or poorly, it no longer concerns you. Smile and congratulate him. Just treat him as an old acquaintance, an old friend." After taking a few deep breaths, the bitterness in Liu Ruyan's heart finally faded substantially. She took a light step forward, about to offer her congratulations, when out of the corner of her eye, she suddenly caught sight of Gong Keiyi standing beside Fang Chen. She noticed Gong Kei's strange posture of cradling her belly with one hand, and upon sweeping her gaze over it, she discerned the slight swell of her abdomen. Like a thunderbolt from a clear sky, it exploded in Liu Ruyan's mind, rattling her into a blank daze where she could no longer hear any sound from the outside world.
Fang Chen actually has a child.
She felt as if her heart had been pierced by a sharp weapon. An excruciating pain, like leeches, burrowed madly into the deepest recesses of her heart. If she had accepted that marriage engagement back then, perhaps her child with Fang Chen would have already been born by now. She clenched her silver teeth tightly on her red lips, the tips piercing her delicate lower lip, as beads of crimson blood slowly seeped along the lines of her lips. She silently stepped backward, and before Fang Chen could notice her, she turned and fled away in a hurried escape. She had thought she had long since let go. But only at the moment she saw Fang Chen's child did she suddenly realize that she had merely been deceiving herself. She had never truly moved on. She had only buried those feelings in a deeper, more painful place within her heart. Ruyan, the Starry Peaks master, snapped back to her senses and let out a low, involuntary cry. Fang Chen's brow twitched slightly at the call, and his figure instantly shifted over. "Senior, why have you and Ruyan come?" As he spoke, he raised his gaze, his eyes chasing after that fleeing, distant figure, a barely perceptible ripple flickering and vanishing in the depths of his eyes. Yet in the end, he did not take a step to pursue her. The Starry Peaks master sighed heavily, her tone hesitant. "Ruyan has already entered the 8-aperture nascent soul stage, I thought." Before she could finish, Fang Chen had already taken out an aperture, opening Divine Nail, and handed it over crisply. "Take it." Then he added in a low voice, "I also have a Buddha's jewel. If she fails to prove her Tao and achieve spirit transformation and falls into madness in the future, she can come find me." The Starry Peaks master now also noticed Gong Kei. When her gaze fell upon the swollen belly, she instantly understood why Liu Ruyan had left so resolutely. She couldn't help but raise her face to the sky and let out a long, heavy sigh. "No need. She will not fail." In this moment, the Starry Peaks master finally understood why Liu Ruyan had chosen to cultivate the most elusive and difficult Tao of time. It stemmed from a bone, deep regret. She regretted that time could not flow backward, that fate could not allow her to choose again. After receiving such a strong stimulus today, her desire to reverse time and return to the past would surely be stronger than ever before. The Starry Peaks master reached out to take the aperture, opening Divine Nail, gazed at Fang Chen with a complex expression, and said slowly, "Both of you will regret this in the future." With those words, her figure transformed into a phantom of light and shadow, dispersing with the wind. Fang Chen clasped his hands behind his back, standing still for a long time, silently watching the direction where Liu Ruyan had disappeared, until her figure completely vanished from sight. "Regret me?" He gently shook his head, then turned around, looked at everyone, and said loudly, "Everyone, continue cultivating." At that moment, a terrifyingly majestic aura of a 9-aperture demon emperor erupted fiercely from the sealed chamber where Fang Chen had first cultivated in seclusion. That was exactly the place left for Fairy Yun Chang and little venerable Buddha to cultivate. It was Fairy Yun Chang, about to prove her Tao and achieve spirit transformation. Fang Chen's heart tightened, and he immediately flashed over, his face full of worry. But after a second thought, his furrowed brow slowly relaxed. With the Buddha's prayer beads in hand, as long as Fairy Yun Chang's Tao intent was not too far off, she would surely awaken peacefully within a few days at most. However, what made Fang Chen and everyone present unable to help but exclaim in shock was, as Fairy Yun Chang broke through to the 9-aperture demon emperor realm, a dazzling and brilliant 5-colored auspicious cloud simultaneously appeared in the heavens above. The auspicious cloud slowly descended, penetrated the roof, and descended directly into the sealed chamber. Seeing this, Fang Chen couldn't help but be startled. The Tao intent Yun Chang condensed is actually so perfect. It must be known that even Fang Chen himself had not been able to reach such a state back then. If not for Liu Ruxu appearing in time to supplement his Tao intent, he would likely still be delirious and demented to this day. The people of the heavenly secret pavilion watched with faces full of envy. The pavilion master sighed with heartfelt admiration, as expected of Fairy Yun Chang. She is inherently the most intelligent and her temperament the most tenacious. I never thought she could prove her Tao and achieve spirit transformation so easily. Liu Qingxian pursed her red lips slightly upon hearing this, and without a word, turned and returned to her own chamber. True Word Venerable, Green Pearl, and now Fairy Yun Chang, all of them were already great experts at the spirit transformation stage. Yet she herself was still only a 6-aperture nascent soul. An invisible, immense pressure instantly seized her heart, making her feel extremely anxious. She absolutely did not want to be like that Wu Manyu, gradually drifting away from Fang Chen's side due to falling behind in cultivation, and ultimately vanishing completely from his sight. She too would strive with all her might. She was determined to cultivate the sword technique she had received through dream transmission to the extreme. Spurred by this atmosphere, everyone's attitude toward cultivation became increasingly urgent. When Fairy Yun Chang emerged from seclusion and everyone had offered their congratulations, they each returned to their respective chambers and began intensive closed-door training. Dearest Fang, Fairy Yun Chang, dressed in white as pure as snow, walked out gracefully, a snowy, white divine halo appearing behind her head. Indescribable joy surged on her face, and with a teleportation, she arrived before Fang Chen. I've broken through to the Demon Lord realm. Everything achieved today felt like a beautiful dream. Back then, she had been forced to marry the Firmament Demon Emperor, becoming a delicate vase placed in his palace. The Demon Emperor not only held her clansmen hostage, but also cut off all her opportunities to break through to the Demon Emperor realm. But ever since meeting Fang Chen, she had not only successfully advanced to Demon Emperor, but now had proven her Tao and stepped into the legendary Demon Lord realm. This was a future she had not even dared to dream of before. And Fang Chen had helped her realize all of it. Fang Chen cupped her exquisitely beautiful face and said softly, "Congratulations, my Demon Lord wife." Fairy Yun Chang threw herself into his broad embrace, weeping with joy, tears streaming down her face. "Dearest Fang, thank you, thank fate for letting me meet you." Fang Chen gently patted her jade-like back and asked warmly, "What Tao have you cultivated? And what is your Tao title?" Hearing this question, Fairy Yun Chang dispelled the hazy mist in her eyes and revealed a strange expression. "The ancient saint did not bestow a Tao title upon me. I also asked Senior Feng, and she didn't receive one either." The ancient saint seems to have stopped speaking. Fang Chen frowned and grumbled internally. Could it be that old hag ancient Saint Yun Huang has gotten so angry she ran away from home? Could she be that petty? He had been chased and struck by thunderbolts for so long and never said anything about running away. It's fine, just being called Yun Chang is nice enough. Fairy Yun Chang, no. She should now be addressed as Demon Lord Yun Chang, said with a charming smile. As for my Tao, Demon Lord Yun Chang glanced around at the now sparse crowd, then bashfully activated the divine halo behind her head. Rumble? Suddenly, a thunderous rumble echoed from behind. The main hall of the distant heavenly secret pavilion instantly collapsed and was torn apart into scattered pieces by an invisible force. The next moment, those scattered bricks and timbers flew up and reassembled themselves, spontaneously constructing an entirely new hall of a completely different style. This is my Tao, named Remolding. Demon Lord Yun Chang took Fang Chen's arm, her face filled with infinite beautiful longing, and recounted slowly. I will remake my demonic body, transforming it entirely into a true human fleshly body. If the spirit transformation stage isn't enough, I'll cultivate to the sage realm. If the sage realm still isn't enough, then I'll prove my Tao and become a saint. I will surely bear a child for my dearest Fang, and also add a descendant to our Zhu family. This is my Tao. What? Hearing this, Fang Chen felt his entire heart melt. Yun Chang's Tao was actually for the sake of being able to bear his child. She was the one who had received his affections the most, yet had failed to become pregnant, and this had long become the deepest knot in her heart. But she had never complained about it, nor ever grew despondent. Instead, she silently transformed this wish into the Tao of her cultivation and resolutely walked that path. Her cultivation, from start to finish, was entirely and completely centered around him, Fang Chen. Yunshang, Fang Chen was thoroughly moved. Yunshang, the demon lord's face, blossomed into a radiant, incomparably beautiful smile. My Fang Lang has treated me with such love and care. I shall spend the rest of my life repaying him with all my heart. Fang Chen suddenly wrapped his arm tightly around her slender waist and declared with resolute finality, Good, in this life I, Fang Chen, will absolutely never fail you. Yunsheng, the demon lord, gazed at him with deep affection and asked Fang Lang, Can this Tao of reforming of mine be of any help to you now? Your decisive battle is only 6 days away, and yet I still haven't been able to help you with anything. Hearing this, Fang Chen's thoughts raced, and suddenly his eyes lit up. There actually is. Come with me? As soon as the words left his mouth, he pulled Yunsheng the Demon Lord quickly back to the secret chamber and immediately took out the Immortal King's indestructible bell. By now, the Immortal King's indestructible bell was already covered with countless dense cracks like a spiderweb, looking as if it would shatter into pieces with a single palm strike. Since the day he had obtained it, this bell had helped Fang Chen block countless fatal attacks beyond reckoning. From dealing with that old cur Sixin, to facing the Asura Empress, to withstanding the World Master of Tongyuan. On the offensive side, from detonating that 9-colored crystal to crossing the terrifying yin fire of the Hell Realm. Without it, Fang Chen's ultimate fate would have been truly difficult to determine. Yunsheng, this bell has absorbed all kinds of powers, even including the power of laws. Can you use your reforming domain to separate them all from the great bell? Fang Chen asked, his tone full of hope. Although the Immortal King's indestructible bell had the ability to absorb the laws of the world, Fang Chen had never quite grasped the key to extracting them. Let me try. Yunsheng the Demon Lord slowly closed her eyes, instantly releasing her reforming domain. In that instant, wisps of profound laws, dark yin fire, 9-colored lightning arcs, and the boundless saintly pressure began peeling away from the great bell in a rush. Yunsheng the Demon Lord's complexion rapidly turned pale as she urgently urged, Fang Lang, quickly collect them. My domain is about to collapse. These powers were simply too powerful and domineering. With Yunsheng, the Demon Lord's current cultivation, forcibly using her domain to separate them was too much of a strain. Fang Chen was already fully prepared. He first activated the primordial heaven, imprisoning gourd he had ready. A terrifying suction burst from its mouth, instantly devouring all the drifting law energies. Next, he circulated his void stream fire energy and precisely drew a strand of yin fire into his own body. Finally, he employed the heavenly abyss heart and guided the remaining lightning arcs into his Danshan and Kai Si. But when it came to that wisp of saintly pressure left by the Tongyuan World Master, he found himself in a dilemma. What kind of container could possibly withstand its terrifying force? He didn't have a single complete leaf from the undying divine tree in his possession. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck Fang Chen. He thought of something and hastily retrieved the mysterious severed hand he had found inside the Immortal King's indestructible bell. Gripping the severed hand tightly, he unhesitatingly slapped it toward that wisp of saintly pressure. That violent wisp of saintly pressure actually merged soundlessly into the palm, and the severed hand remained completely unharmed. A dull thud echoed. Yunsheng the Demon Lord abruptly withdrew her domain. Her beautiful face was now as pale as paper, and her whole body was drenched in sweat. Fang Chen immediately cast his flawless second domain on her, which finally helped her complexion recover. Just merely reforming the Immortal King's indestructible bell once had nearly left her gravely injured. It seemed he would have to find a way to master the operating method himself in the future. He absolutely could not let Yunsheng endure such hardship again. How did it go, Fang Lang? Yunsheng the Demon Lord asked with concern, lifting a hand to smooth her damp, sweat-soaked hair. Fang Chen nodded. Only that final wisp of saintly pressure was a bit troublesome. Everything else is properly taken care of. As Fang Chen was speaking, he suddenly caught an extremely subtle movement out of the corner of his eye. That pale, severed woman's hand, its little finger actually moved without any warning. Fang Chen's eyelids twitched violently, his heart pounding with shock. He was truly and deeply frightened. This was the hand of a world master, and it was highly likely that it belonged to Hua Xin herself. With an existence at that level, any minor stir could contain a cataclysm capable of destroying heaven and earth. Fortunately, after that brief stirring of the little finger, there was no further movement at all. Fang Chen let out a long breath of turbid air and realized with sudden clarity, so that's it. This hand can only be fully opened by relying on saintly pressure. He focused his gaze and saw that as the little finger relaxed, an extremely narrow gap had quietly appeared between the fingers. His curiosity irresistibly piqued. Fang Chen couldn't help but lean closer and peer carefully into that tiny crevice. Deep within the gap, he could faintly make out a trace of dark red viscous liquid, flickering in and out of view. Blood red. What is this? Could it be a world master's blood? But why is there none of the terrifying pressure I imagined? Fang Chen muttered to himself. Suddenly, a thought streaked into his mind like a bolt of lightning, causing his entire body to shudder violently. With a sudden grasp of his palm, that black execution verdict brush instantly appeared in his hand. An irrepressible, intensely excited light flickered in Fang Chen's eyes. Because he had almost guessed what that blood, red liquid truly was, It was unmistakably the ink that the execution verdict brush had lost for 10,000 years. Of course, amidst the wild joy, he still needed one final verification. He flipped his hand and took out the spatial mirror with a slight movement of his mind. The next moment, Hua Xin was teleported out of the mirror world without any warning. She was still in that lazy posture, lying on her side with a stalk of yin energy carrot dangling from her mouth. Caught off guard, she landed heavily on her bottom with a thud. What's the big idea? Hua Xin scrambled to her feet in annoyance and grumbled with dissatisfaction. Has the Hell Realm sent someone to ransom me, or what? Fang Chen looked at her with complete seriousness and said gravely, there is a murder case right now that requires your cooperation to identify a corpse. This is your obligation. Please fully cooperate. Hua Xin dusted off her bottom, her delicate brows arching high. She scoffed dismissively. Identify some corpse. Can you even count the number of people I, Hua Xin, have killed? Without haste, Fang Chen produced that fair, jade-like severed woman's hand and asked in a deep voice, then come and identify this. Whose hand is it? Who would have expected that before Hua Xin's eyes had even fully turned to look, her body jolted violently as if struck by lightning? She had clearly sensed something. Her gaze shot over like lightning, and her face filled with shock as she cried out involuntarily, isn't this my hand? Hey, where did you find it? I remember it clearly fell in the heavenly realm. Hua Xin never imagined that identifying the corpse would actually lead back to herself. Fang Chen thought to himself, so it is indeed Hua Xin's hand, just as expected. He pressed further in a deep voice, since it is yours, then what is that thing being held inside the palm? Hua Xin's eyes rolled shiftily as she evaded with vague words, it's been 10,000 years, how could I possibly still remember? Perhaps it's just a handful of worthless dirt. Fang Chen didn't refute her, he merely nodded lightly. Gripping the execution verdict brush tightly, he slowly inserted its slender, razor-sharp tip into the crevice of the severed palm. The dark red, viscous liquid, as if finding its rightful home, quickly climbed up and was greedily absorbed by the brush tip. In no time, more than half of the brush head was stained a deep crimson, and that trace of viscous liquid seeping from the finger crevice had been completely absorbed. It seemed that nearly half of the ink had already been absorbed. Fang Chen looked up at Hua Xin with a half smile. Since your memory is so poor, then I'll take the trouble to help you recall it properly. Before his words had even faded, gripping the execution verdict brush now restored to vibrant life, he slowly began to write the character for death toward Hua Xin. Just writing the first stroke, Fang Chen felt an immense difficulty, as though what he held was not a brush, but an unbearably heavy ancient divine mountain. This feeling was exactly the same as when he had first mastered the execution verdict brush. This was the feeling. The execution verdict brush had finally, completely returned. Hua Xin instantly gasped in horror, her face drastically changing as she frantically lunged forward, desperately hugging Fang Chen's leg, and shrieked, "No, husband. I remember now. I remember everything. The verdict pen was always only half. One half is the pen you hold, husband, and the other half is this ink. That hand I was holding held one of those ink blocks, which can grind ink on its own. Please don't kill me. I'm your realm lord wife after all. You can't be biased against me." Fang Chen's face was instantly overtaken by wild joy and excitement. No wonder he had always felt that the verdict pen's power was unworthy of the supreme title of a realm artifact. It turned out that what determined its full might was this humble ink. He withdrew the pen tip and looked at the tightly clenched severed hand, asking, "Can you open this hand yourself?" Hua Xin shook her head miserably. "I am now nothing but a remnant soul. How could I possibly open it? This body I willingly abandoned has become akin to a stranger's body to a remnant soul, impossible to control any longer. Otherwise, if I just retrieve my own corpse from the Bronze Hall, wouldn't I instantly reclaim the position of Realm Lord?" That actually made sense. The principle is the same as body possession among humans. One can only seize another's living body. A soul cannot re-enter its own corpse. Wait. Fang Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed, and he stared fixedly at Hua Xin. What did you just say? Your body is inside that bronze hall. Hua Xin answered subconsciously, yes, in the abyss of the hell root. What, didn't you see it? A trace of mockery flickered in her beautiful eyes. HMPH, does this bastard only realize now? Regret it, don't you? No, you missed something, right. Now you finally understand that the bronze hole is a treasure, huh? HMPH. Even if you know, so what? The bronze hole is suppressed by my very corpse. No one in this world can move it. However, what happened next left her utterly dumbfounded. She saw Fang Chen wordlessly pick up the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd, its mouth still connected by a faint, barely visible thin chain securely fastened to a spatial storage item he carried with him. He grabbed the spatial storage item and said flatly to Hua Xin, "Take a good look. Is it that hall inside?" Hua Xin's consciousness probed into the storage item on instinct. With just one glance, she was so shocked her eyeballs nearly popped out. Inside the spatial storage item, an immense bronze hole stood majestically, and atop it lay a Hell Spirit bell, firmly suppressing it. With a muffled thud, Hua Xin's legs gave way, and she fell straight to her knees, an overwhelming urge to vomit blood surging within her. You actually moved my entire abode here." Only then did she remember in despair that Fang Chen possessed 2 realm artifacts. With the suppression of realm artifacts, it was entirely possible to move the bronze hall and easily take it away. Fang Chen unhurriedly retrieved the spatial storage item and nodded, his tone calm yet lethal. "I suggest you don't bother returning to the Hell Realm.
After all, I've brought your home here for you."
Hua Xin felt the world spin and darkness envelop her. She stumbled and collapsed into the spatial mirror, lying stiffly on the ground, unwilling to utter another word. In all her life, she had never believed in fate. But now, she did. So it turned out there truly was a person in this world fated to suppress her, utterly and irreversibly, leaving her never able to rise again. Fang Chen put away the verdict pen with extreme care. Today, he had acquired a great killer weapon. Once wielded, this verdict pen stained with the new ink, how earth-shattering would its power be. Thinking back, when he was merely at the core formation stage, he had used this pen to slay Exalted by You, a 5-orifice nascent soul cultivator, in a single strike. Now, at the deity transformation 3rd decay, what terrifying might could he unleash with this restored verdict pen? He had gained yet another trump card against the young emperor. But the surprises were far from over. Fang Chen's gaze burned hotly at the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd in his hand, because it had absorbed the lingering law essences from the immortal king's indestructible bell. The dark 9 Hells Asura Emperor, who had been stuck at the Gourd's mouth, was finally completely drawn inside. The function of the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd, was not limited to simply capturing enemies. Most crucially, with just 3 shakes, it could transform a captured enemy into a so-called primordial seed. It had previously captured the Netherworld King, Tian Jian, and Liu Bianhuang, but those 3 possessed greater value, so he had never shaken them into seeds. However, the situation with this Dark 9 Hells Asura Emperor was entirely different. Extremely dangerous, and with absolutely no one to ransom him, he was simply born to become a seed. Without a shred of hesitation, Fang Chen silently recited the name of the Ghost 7 Asura Emperor and began shaking the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd vigorously. From within the Gourd came the sound of liquid sloshing violently, interspersed with the Asura Emperor Ghost 7's harrowing shrieks. Soon the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd, let out a loud belch-like sound, and its mouth gurgled, spitting out a thumb-sized jet-black seed. The seed was crystal clear, and within it one could faintly see a miniature figure of the Asura Emperor, Ghost 7, struggling silently. Fang Chen bent down to pick it up, and in an instant, a stream of mysterious information flooded his mind. One Dark 9 Hells Asura Emperor primordial seed. Upon activation, it can produce dark spores that burrow into an enemy's body and control them as a puppet. Effective only against 9 Hells, 9 Suns, 9 Wings, and 3 Calamities sages. After reading the information, Fang Chen couldn't help but draw a sharp breath. Isn't this equivalent to the full force strike of a 9 Hells Dark Asura Emperor? If used properly, wouldn't he be able to directly obtain a 3 Calamities sage as a puppet? Moreover, once he had a puppet at the 3 Calamities level, wouldn't he have an endless supply of law power? And with law power, could he not continuously activate the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd to capture sages? Once he captured new sages, he would gain more sage power, and with more sage power he could activate the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd even more. If this cycle continued, in less than 2 or 3 years, he would dominate the sage realm and reach the pinnacle of life. Fang Chen couldn't help but let out a silly laugh, then quickly wiped the drool from the corner of his mouth and carefully put away the primordial seed. Of course, this was only theoretically a viable shortcut. With his current cultivation, attempting to activate the seed head on and strike a 3 Calamities sage would likely be harder than reaching the heavens. The opponent wasn't a fool. How could they just stand still and let him attack? In fact, the moment Fang Chen made any suspicious move, the opponent would sense it in advance and instantly strike to finish him off. Thus, without a perfect opportunity, he must not use it lightly. Next, Fang Chen took out the remnant lightning arcs from the 9, colored crystal, and the wisp of netherworld fire from the Hell Realm's sky curtain. Fang Chen first began absorbing the cluster of 9 colored lightning arcs. Though only an exceedingly faint strand remained, the lightning power it contained was far more terrifying than ordinary thunder. Just this faint strand instantly filled his heavenly abyss heart to the brim. Some residual power that couldn't be contained circulated ceaselessly through his meridians. Fang Chen's heart stirred slightly, and he pondered silently. His eyes glimmered with thought as he muttered, "The combined effect of the 6 heavenly thunders allows one to temporarily possess the power of the deity transformation stage. But if the absorbed thunder is this 9 colored tribulation lightning, does that mean it can elevate one beyond just the first decay?" As he pondered, Fang Chen spread his palm. A demonic hell lotus bloomed starkly in his hand. That was precisely one of the 6, the hell lotus. But vastly different from before, this hell lotus now displayed 9 colors, and within its petals surged an incredibly violent and ferocious force. Yun Sheng, standing nearby, felt her heart race with terror at just a glance. With a wary expression, she exclaimed in shock, "Its power has become far stronger than before. It feels as if it has transformed into something entirely different." Fang Chen's eyes also flickered with an undeniable light of excitement. Stronger? That was an understatement. In the past, the Hell Lotus was effective only against those at the mid-nascent soul realm at most. But now it can truly threaten the life of a divine transformation realm expert. Moreover, just one of the 6 components has already undergone a qualitative change. If all 6 are combined, how could it merely elevate to the first decline of the celestial? And regarding the fusion of the 6, he harbors an even bolder notion in his heart. Fang Chen temporarily reined in the raging thunder force and cast his gaze upon the yin fire. He naturally did not dare to rashly touch the complete yin fire, for it was something even the Asura Emperor deeply feared. But now it was different. Only a wisp remained, and he could fully absorb and refine it. Thus, 3 days passed in a flash. At this moment, within Fang Chen's palm, 2 diametrically opposed flames surged simultaneously. One was a milky, white little angel with faint green light flickering at the edges of its wings. The other was a pitch black little Asura. The little angel and the little Asura stood back to back, distinctly separate, completely unable to merge. Yun Sheng, witnessing this scene, exclaimed in wonder, "Fang Lang, your cultivation of the heavenly blue true fire art. Even if masters from the Asura clan and Angel clan came, they'd probably doubt their own existence on the spot." Clearly flames that counter each other, yet now wielded by a human, instead countering them all. Hearing this, Fang Chen couldn't help but chuckle. It is more than that. As his words fell, he took a deep breath. Within his body, a crimson meridian shimmered faintly, like a fiery vein flowing with magma, radiating a scorching, astonishing heat. Thanks to this wisp of yin fire, my void-flowing fire force has finally reached perfection from great achievement. As the void-flowing thunder force activated, the holy fire and yin fire both swelled significantly, their might instantly surging by a large margin. Yun Sheng said in surprise, "Fang Lang, so it's not only the void-flowing thunder force that amplifies thunder arts, but the void-flowing fire force also amplifies the power of E-arts. In other words, the remaining 3 forces will all aid their corresponding divine abilities." Fang Chen nodded. This was indeed a new discovery he had figured out over these past few days. His gaze turned focused as he slowly said, "However, these findings are still minor explorations. The true discovery is astounding." "Oh?" Yun Sheng's expression showed surprise. He had merely perfected the void-flowing fire force. What astounding discovery could there be? Then, with another thought from Fang Chen, a second faint meridian abruptly appeared within his body. Flowing with wild thunder within, it was the void-flowing thunder force. Fang Chen clenched his palm, and the void-flowing thunder force and void-flowing fire force converged in his hand, instantly coalescing into a terrifying red and white thunder, fire. The moment this thunder, fire appeared, the surrounding space was directly burned through, revealing the world barrier hidden behind. Through that barrier, one could even clearly see the pitch black void outside. What made Yun Sheng's pupils sharply contract was that the incredibly sturdy world barrier, under the illumination of this thunder, fire, actually showed faint signs of melting. This thunder, fire could actually burn through the world barrier. This is clearly a feat only a sage could accomplish. In terms of sheer might, this thunder, fire already possessed the power of a half-step sage. At this moment, Yun Sheng finally fully understood what Fang Chen's astounding discovery truly was. It was after the void-flowing 5 forces reach perfection, they can fuse, and their power will instantly skyrocket to an utterly terrifying level. Fang Chen's eyes suppressed a deep, seated ecstasy as he said solemnly, "I once doubted whether the void-flowing 5 forces was just an empty name. Do you know how it describes the fusion of the 5 forces?" Yun Sheng shook her head. She emotionally wrapped her arms around Fang Chen's waist from behind, gently resting her chin on his broad shoulder, her eyes filled with laughter. The void-flowing 5 forces was one of Fang Chen's most core divine abilities. His willingness to share this secret with her was an unconditional, absolute trust. She softly shook her head and said, "I don't know, but I imagine it must be extraordinarily remarkable." Fang Chen took a deep breath and recited word by word, 5 forces unite, void heaven perfected. When no saint emerges, invincible under heaven. Wow. Yun Sheng covered her red lips in shock and blurted out, "Invincible under heaven if no saint appears." Does this mean, once all 5 forces are cultivated to perfection and fused, one can contend with the sage of the Three Calamities realm? Fang Chen's eyes flashed with sharp light, and he declared, "Exactly. So when the void-flowing thunder force reached perfection, its might was only equivalent to the 3rd celestial decline." I had thought then whether the description was too exaggerated, but now it seems. Fang Chen looked down at the terrifying thunder, fire leaping in his palm, capable of easily eradicating any divine transformation realm expert, and murmured softly, "This technique may not be wrong. When I perfect the remaining 3 forces of wind, earth, and heaven, and the 5 forces fuse to condense a void heaven minor world, it may not be impossible to contend with a sage of the Three Calamities realm." As he spoke, that fearsome thunder, fire gradually weakened until it completely extinguished. The void-flowing thunder and fire meridians within Fang Chen also dimmed accordingly. Fang Chen calmly added, "There is also a drawback. After fusion, the consumption of void-flowing force is 10 times faster and cannot be sustained for long." The flush of excitement on Yun Sheng's face had not yet faded as she said firmly, "That is enough. If such a formidable thunder, fire cannot kill the opponent in a short time, it only means the enemy's strength has surpassed the sage realm, and then no ordinary divine ability could match it." Fang Chen nodded. With the aid of the power within the immortal king's indestructible bell, his combat strength had increased by a large margin, and he now fully possessed the ability to face Ordena Rai Great Venerables directly. Of course, to slay the opponent, he would likely need to employ some true trump cards. "Congratulations, Fang Lang, on your greatly increased strength." Yun Sheng's eyes were full of joyful laughter. Watching this little man go from the core formation realm all the way to strength rivaling a great venerable, she felt an indescribable pride in her heart. Fang Chen turned his head and gently kissed her small lips, laughing. "Thanks to your reshaping domain, you helped me extract these powers. Otherwise, how could I have my current strength? I'm going to give you a good reward." Yun Sheng immediately caught on, blushing, and said coyly, "I don't want it. Let's give the opportunity to Lu Zhu and Zhen Yan. Sister Ruxu once said that when she's not here, she wants me and King Zion to help manage. I must follow her example, be magnanimous and tolerant, and absolutely cannot monopolize you." Fang Chen lifted her chin with his hand and chuckled, "So sensible, then, I'll reward you even more." As he said that, he turned and pinned Yun Sheng beneath him, but just as he was about to undress, he suddenly sat up straight. His brow slightly raised, he said in a deep voice, "Strange, in this day and age, a great venerable still dares to cause trouble at the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion. Do they not know how the word death is written?" At this moment, outside the mountain gate of the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, Silver Moon Great Venerable clasped his hands behind his back, showing disdain and mocked, "A dead tiger that can't even take human form dares to block my path." On the ground, a white tiger covered in wounds was crouching low, its eyes gleaming ferociously, emitting low, angry roars at him. This white tiger had been leisurely living at the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, eating and sleeping all day, drinking when awake, basking in the sun when free, or running around joyfully living a carefree and happy life. Compared to the days of life and death struggles with other great demons in the wild ancient hunting grounds, it was simply paradise. However, the good times didn't last. Ever since Senior Feng of Mount Sanking was guided by Fang Chen with the Buddha's prayer beads and awakened to the divine transformation realm, countless late, nascent soul experts have flocked from all over the 9 provinces. They all wanted to use those beads to prove their Tao and achieve divine transformation. However, the Buddha resonance of those beads could be depleted. If outsiders exhausted it, what would the people of the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion use themselves? Thus, the White Tiger was reassigned to guard the mountain gate, keeping all these greedy fellows out. But today, 2 uninvited guests suddenly arrived, and dealing with them was indeed a bit tricky. Red Devil Great Venerable, Zhenyan Venerable, and Lu Zhu heard the commotion and immediately rushed over. Zhenyan's delicate brows slightly furrowed as she coldly asked, Silver Moon Great Venerable and Moon Venerable, "What are you doing at the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion?" She could understand if late nascent soul martial artists came, but what were 2 divine transformation realm Great Venerables doing here? Silver Moon Great Venerable, hands behind his back, said arrogantly, "Tell Fang Chen to come out. I have matters to discuss with him." Lu Zhu immediately snorted coldly and scolded, "Such arrogance! My husband come out personally to see you. Do you think you are worthy?" "Husband?" Moon Venerable couldn't help but carefully size up Lu Zhu. With that silver long hair, exquisitely beautiful jade-like face, she looked just like an elven maiden running through green fields. Fang Chen truly had great fortune. She sighed softly, turned to Silver Moon Great Venerable, and advised, "Silver Moon, let's go. We didn't come here to make enemies. Stop this." She had come today because she heard that the young emperor had given Fang Chen a black spirit herb that could help one break through the celestial 3 declines, yet Fang Chen actually refused to use it. Coincidentally, she was currently at the 2nd celestial decline and desperately needed such a spirit herb.